Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to race number 4 of the Clutch Drop Cup Series Season 2 as we're here in the hot and slick desert. This is Phoenix International Raceway as it plays host for the 205 flapper that we're getting set to run here tonight. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin. And Scott, these drivers here tonight are going to have to deal more, I think, with the track conditions than they really are with their cars and the cars around them.
Yeah, look, I mean, Phoenix, it's not easy in any stretch of the imagination. You know, there's going to see a lot of drivers cutting down and using the apron tonight on the dock leg and that back stretch. You're going to see guys looking for a little bit of that PJ1 that we don't obviously have in Sim. Normally you would be out there on the racetrack really trying to find where that stuff spreads right out to the edge of the track. You know, all of those little tricks and tidbits are not really available in a Sim. I think the drivers are going to really be looking for them, but hey, it's a difficult race. It's a long race. If I'm in any of these drivers' shoes as we go green, my goal, get to the back end of the race, have a clean car, and go for the overall. I'm not worried about stage points tonight.
Mike Tellier starting from the pole position. If ever a driver needed a good run after hard luck in the first 3 races, it would be last year's regular season champion. He is yet to have a finish up inside at the top, I believe the top 5, maybe the top 10. I'd have to double check on that, but it's just not been good luck for him. Yeah, he's still looking to score his first top 10 on the season.
Yeah, look, you know, sometimes that happens. It's just part and parcel of racing and good quality racing. The standard, I think, has come up. There is one out in the wall.
Brandon King in the 89.
Looks like he's saved it, so there's going to be no caution as we get things settled in, get underway. And look, again, like I said, it's settle yourself in. It's a long run tonight. It is by no stretch of the imagination a short, easy deal. So your first and most important thing is get used to the car, get used to the track conditions, get used to the driver around you, and push on after that.
Another thing, too, is with the slick conditions here tonight, we just kind of saw there out of what is turn 4, since we have the start-finish line over on the old section of what was the front straightaway. It's not there anymore in the current Phoenix, but this battle that we're watching here for the 5th position with Travis Daly and Alonso Cachano saw the 2 of them really sliding their tires off the corner, and these drivers only have 5 sets to work with, so you have to be what we call conservatively aggressive, and that might not be something we can do here tonight.
Robert Kenny was all sorts of messed up, I believe, heading into 1 and 2 right there. He was not having a good time. He's going to make his way. I think he just dropped about 8, 9, 10 spots, somewhere in that realm of things. That was risque. He did not look comfortable. Yeah, look, I mean, you know, like I said, settle yourselves in, guys. There's a long way to go. If you can save an extra set of tires early, give yourself that better run at the back end of the race. Heck, if you can go maybe to the 100 lap mark, get both stages out of the way on just the 1 set of tires, you give yourself so much wiggle room and time and space to work with at the back end of this race. Who knows what you'll be pulling out when that rolls around, so...
Big story coming into this race, of course, has been Sim Racing Development, picking up all 3 poles so far this season and winning 2 of the last 3 races. Of course, last week it was Jeremy Bougie getting his first win on the year. Mike Tellier getting the pole here tonight snaps their streak, and right now you actually have to go quite a ways back before you find the first driver to SRD. It's actually a 4th entry in the field here tonight, Oscar Jensen. Been a while since I've seen Oscar in a car, all the way back to when FRN covered the Soda Guys Cup Series, but giving it a pretty good run early, trying to hold off Tristan Mayer for P7.
Yeah, it's good to see him, and good to see, obviously, the SDM guys go from strength to strength as well. We've obviously seen just a lot of pace out of these guys in the early portion of the season, so it'd be interesting to see what his strategy is with the team. Is he settling in there? Is he just trying to fill out their roster? Is he trying to be another driver that books his way into the playoffs at the back end of the season? Well, if he gets himself a strong result here tonight, that'll start answering a few questions that some of the other drivers might have.
The other driver making his first start in the year is the 2nd place driving Sean English in the number 60 car, and he's starting to eat away into Mike Tellier's race lead. That last time by, he and Mike Tellier almost ran identical lap times.
You know what? I've actually driven around Sean English quite a few times in officials. He's actually a very, very quick driver, but he's quite young, and with that comes that lack of experience, and he definitely portrays that. He's got outright pace. He is a very quick driver at the right circuits. I just don't think that he has the mental capability, the mental fortitude, and the overall racecraft and long-term strategy and long-term ability to win something like this. But to see him up front early, look, he's going to be learning lessons all day long whilst he's up there.
of our former winners as the battle for the lead is on. Taking a look to the inside is Sean English. Got to the left rear. We'll see if he can power it off of turn 4. Not quite going to be able to keep it to the inside, so Tellier will hang on for another lap. But our winner 2 weeks ago, Brian Sibrey, who also comes in the current points leader, he is struggling early, all the way back in a battle for 26. That is technically next to last on the track right now. He just got around Braden Carroll, another debuting driver, but a guy who went to victory lane 2 weeks ago. Is this just minding his equipment, or is he actually struggling, do you think?
Honestly, if he's been to victory lane just a couple weeks ago, I believe actually Cybery did end up asking for an EOL penalty. So my thinking with that is he wants to stay as far away from the trouble early on, just wants to really look after himself, look after the car. But the other thing he wants to do is probably get some time in around some of these slower cars and just sort of learn a little bit more about their racecraft. Where are they weak? Where are they strong? Do they make a lot of mistakes? What's the go there? Just so we can put it in the book for later on in the season when it's, you know, such a more important thing now that he's locked himself into these playoffs. So, look, it's a decision that you can make when you've got a win under your belt, and well, he is one of those drivers that's got to win. So,
Mike Tellier led the first 11 laps. Sean English now the new race leader here at Phoenix as the battle for third starts to close up. Alonso Cachano onto the back bumper of Jacob Grant, who has had a couple of good runs in the past few weeks, climbs his way up to 6th in the points coming into tonight's event.
Yeah, somebody else actually having a look at point standings. It's made a lot of ground up. It's actually Travis Daly. I was just having a look. Wasn't 100% sure if I saw his name out there. Yeah, he is. He's running the 15 car. He's up in 5th position at this point in time. So he's doing a really, really good job. 16 positions in the last couple of weeks, so that's phenomenal out of him. So 3 races, 3 strong finishes. He's gotten 1 top 5, 1 top 10, and he's on 111 points total. 20 bonus points earned for him. So he's doing an all right job just to start things off. His next focus is going to be trying to convert this consistency into a win.
Yeah, last week was the best run we've seen out of him in the entire season. Ran up inside the top 5 for about the last 2/3 of that race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and has now opened up a bit of a gap between himself and the 24 of David Durand. Durand looks in his rearview mirror, sees Oscar Jensen, and behind him, way up there into 3 and 4, is the 12 of Justin Belmonte. That's another driver coming off a pretty decent run last week at Las Vegas.
Belmonte's been a little bit up and down for my liking. I think I've been here for the couple of races where he's just been involved in a few things that may have not necessarily been entirely his doing. So, look, he's got skill, he's got pace. We've definitely seen that from Belmonte. But again, another one of those drivers that you need to see him convert. He's got the ability to run well. He just hasn't converted it yet. And I'm sure it'll be a chip on his shoulder, and I have a feeling that he isn't far away from converting that either.
Tristan Mayer got the wall off of turn 4. That's at least the second time I've seen him nearly spin the thing around off the final corner, and now he's got Braxton Dewees almost into his rear deck lid off of turn 2. Going back there to Justin Belmonte, he's trying to continue a streak on his own. He's the only driver this season that's fished in the top 10 in the first 3 races, and on top of that, the only driver to finish in the top 5 in the first 3 races this season, as Mayer gets loose off 4 again. That time got into Braxton Dewees, locks it down on the front straightaway, and the caution will fly.
Yep, first caution of the night. I tell you what, Tristan Mayer, he won't be happy with that. He's not been having the prettiest season, and he's very, very close in terms of the point fight. 111 points is Travis Daly sitting in 4th place. We were talking about him a little bit earlier on. 105 drops all the way back to David Durand, and that's 9th place. So 4th to 9th place covered by 6 points. 6 points. That is so close. We've got 2 drivers on 109. So Daly on 111. We got Matt Dyer on 110. Master of the weird strategies is Matt Dyer, so expect to see him running well tonight. Jacob Grant on 109 points. Brandon King on 109 points. Tristan Mayer on 108 points. David Durand 105 points. So it's been consistency that's really the strong point of a lot of these drivers. Something else I'd like to really point out looking at the point standings, Gerald Campbell has only run 2 races, and he's actually on 95 points. He's only 10 points off of these guys as well. So expect to see him up there a lot more often.
Had that runner finish last week at Las Vegas. Is not in the field here tonight, so it doesn't look like he's going to gain any spots here this evening. He may end up losing a couple of positions in the stands as he's just on a part-time run, and we were on board there with the 3 of Braxton Dewees. Now, it doesn't look like he took that much contact to the right side of his machine, he should be okay. The reason why I was kind of wondering was when we saw Brandon King go up into the outside wall on the back straightaway, that hit looked just almost about the same type of violent hit as the contact we just saw there between Dewees and Mayer, and it actually has put Brandon King back in the garage area. So looks like just, I guess, with the point of impact, Braxton Dewees is going to be okay for the time being. That right side damage not going to affect him in terms of having to stay a lengthy stop on pit road.
Yeah, look, the thing to say about King is that King's actually left. He's done for the night. There'll be no further action from Brandon King. So, interesting decision by him. He was definitely struggling to keep the car down. Something we were talking to a few of the guys from Luminary a little bit earlier this evening, and something to note about their setup is that they have a loose setup, a very loose, very unstable, especially on the hot track as we start off the evening. And then their setup gets really, really good across the short run. The longer the green flag runs go, the worse their setup becomes. And if you think about the Clutch Drop Cup series, normally we're having these very, very long runs in terms of we're running most of a stage, or most of the final stage in between stage 2 and stage 3. Tonight that's going to be 105 laps, notwithstanding that caution period at the end of stage number 2 at the 100 lap mark. So look, you're looking at a period of about 100 laps where there's going to be a large portion of green flag running, and those Luminary guys are going to be very, very weak during that. If I'm doing setups and I'm in these guys' heads and I'm in these guys' garages and I'm trying to help them out with those setup and those sorts of things, what's going through my head is clutch drop. You don't see a lot of short runs. I'm looking to build a long run car. I'm not necessarily, sure, qualifying can come and go, but qualifying doesn't mean all that much. Qualifying just gets you a little bit of track position at the start of the race, and that's about it. So if I'm looking to build setups to run in the Clutch Drop Cup, I'm going to be building a long run setup because I know that we're going to be spending a long period of green flag running.
Boy, we nearly had ourselves. We do have a wreck here on the restart, and it started all the way up at the 3rd position with Alonso Cachano. Everybody checked up behind him. There's a couple of cars that are against the inside wall. I think one of them might have been the 28 of Nathan Hall, so we don't even get about 200 feet, and already second caution of the evening flies.
Time for a little bit of patience, guys. Make sure that you really look after your car, you look after everything, do what you need to. Oh! Yeah, so Chicano just spins tires, getting back to green flag, and it just, concertina effect, slowly works its way back through the field. Unfortunately, that's part and parcel of racing, but Chicano's going to need to make sure that he's a lot more clean on this restart.
Take a look at what happened back here. We kind of saw the Penn car spin his tires, and where is the contact that sends the car out? It's actually our Daytona winner, I think, that got hooked, of Derek Schilling in front of the field, and he was up, I believe, restarting in the 12th position. Sorry, make that 11th. He was the last of the drivers that had elected to stay out under this caution.
Yeah, well, look, good for him. Honestly, if I'm in these guys' shoes, I need to come down and need to grab that fuel. I need to really make sure that about now, you're good, definitely good to get to the end of the stage. I have a feeling that the fuel window for these guys at this track is going to be somewhere in around that 35 to 40 to 45 lap mark. So anytime that they get an opportunity to come down pit road, they get to fill those cars up without having to do that on the green. Some of these guys, though, right now, they just want to buy themselves some track position, which ultimately, given the last couple of laps, maybe not a bad idea, especially if they are green to the end. Maybe they're a couple liters shy on fuel, the way that the tires are going to fall off and their throttle positions are going to fall off throughout the stage. There is a case that they may be able to make it through. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens.
Well, especially when you consider the layout of Phoenix, you've got so much off the throttle time, especially over here in 3 and 4, letting the car coast in and then getting back to the throttle, maybe about 2/3 of the way through into turn 4. You also have to use quite a bit of brake over in turn 1. So with all that off the throttle time, you're able to not use up nearly as much fuel as you would at maybe a longer track as Las Vegas that we were at last week. And these drivers, at least up here at the front, they're technically, for the time being, racing towards the completion of lap 50, the end of our first stage, where those stage points would be awarded.
Yeah, I mean, there's potentially just different strategies, different mind games. Some of these guys that come down and grab fuel, what they've bought themselves, and they've lost track position, but they've bought themselves into security. They know that their stage break pit stop is going to be a fair bit shorter than some of the other guys that are running at the front. They know that they're faster. So there's a couple different options in terms of things there. Additionally, maybe the guys that are going to be running at the front, they're going to be off throttle a little bit more, which makes them more vulnerable, more susceptible to being overtaken as well. Guys at the back, they're just going, look, maybe I don't want to necessarily be up here. Maybe there's an opportunity to find something here at this back. Maybe following a few other cars, maybe learning a little bit from some of the other cars that are going to be around tonight. There's always opportunities to learn every single time you're out the track. We'll see what everyone throughout the field is able to do.
Audible has been called. Single file restart here on lap 25 as English going to get away. Mike Tellier now left to battle for second place with Jacob Grant. That's Braxton Dewees making a move on Oscar Jensen for fourth.
Yeah, look at them. They're starting to get things nice and settled down. They've definitely got that restart going out. English is going to stay on the high side, not really cut all the way down onto the apron. What he wants to do right now is he definitely wants to cut that air. He doesn't want to give Tellier as much of that draft as he possibly can. Look at the line difference coming through 3 and 4 as well. English paints that apron line, dips maybe one tire just below it. Tellier drifts up in the mid-corner, sort of diamonds it off a little bit, gets back to the power a little bit quicker, and now look how close he is to the rear bumper of English.
We've had 9 drivers that have not come to pit road since the drop of the green flag 26 laps ago. We're looking at Evan Coleman in the 51. He was on pit road back under the first yellow flag, topped off the fuel tank, didn't take any tires. So if there's any drivers up here in front of him that are a little nervous on whether they can make it to lap 50 on fuel, it could fall into the 51's hands. As right there you saw the 28 of Nathan Hall, a lap machine, almost lose it off of turn 4 or make that turn 2 rather, and onto the back straightaway.
Yeah, look, it's safety and security. That's what we were talking about, right? If in the 51's machine, he doesn't have to save fuel. He can race everyone as absolutely hard as he needs to. Oh my God, Braxton Dewees just sent it so deep into 3 and 4, drifts right up the track, comes back down. I'll tell you what, Tellier was loose coming off the 3 and 4 as well right there. So a few of the drivers are definitely struggling in terms of that long run pace. Sends it a lot deeper into turn 1. Does Tellier, runs it right up near the wall, whereas English is right down on that apron. He's right down on the inside line. There's a few different ways around this this racetrack. We got a recent update in terms of iRacing. It's supposed to enable multi-groove racing, and I'll tell you what, tonight is the first opportunity for these guys to really demonstrate their abilities to do that. Was that a loose driver again, Tellier? He's struggling, I think.
Yeah, he nearly almost got the wall there off of turn 4, and to your point, definitely loose off that corner as it's going to drop him back into the vicinity of Jacob Grant in the battle for second place. Mike Tellier coming into this race is the highest finisher at Phoenix in a previous event. Last year, he finished runner-up to Garrett Powell, who's not in the field here tonight. Garrett Powell last year led 104 laps going coast-to-coast, pole to win, so if you're looking at a favorite to win here tonight, you might have to look at that 97.
Yeah, but right now, that Camry's got some issues. Let's see what he can change up in his pit stops. He is running clean. Remember, he qualified pole, so he's definitely got the short run pace. He's got the ability to stick that qualifying lap down. Can he look after the tires? English right now was very, very slow on the restart, and Tellier was all over him. But right now, it's English that's in the advantageous position. He's running away from him a little bit. Built up 0.4, 0.5 of a second, so nearly half a second. Right there. Now Tellier's starting to settle it down a bit because Grant's off his rear wing, because Grant was right there, really wanted to push him up the track, wanted to throw the car down the inside. He was thinking about a move, but he wasn't quite close enough. Well, now both of these guys are not really fighting somebody. We're going to see a little bit of a different story. And I tell you what, I just watched the entry of the 3 and 4. English is entering with the car a lot straighter. It looks like Mike Tellier has got what they call a slip angle, a stronger slip angle on corner entry. Just basically means that the car is angling a little bit in. Sometimes can be caused by a little bit of a rear slide, but whatever it's doing, it's working for him because he's definitely faster on corner entry than English.
Right now, the fastest car on the track, besides the top 2, might be that 12 of Justin Belmonte. He got around his teammate Travis Daly for 7th, and now actually jumps up to the second group to try and get a run on 5th place Oscar Jensen. Just to follow up, well, I think we had an issue. Travis Daly in the 15 is dropping. He's actually coming to pit road, and I think I see some damage on the left front of that car. I'm not sure if he got into somebody or not.
Just trying to... Oh, you keep track with the race, and I'll see what I can pick up there for you. Yeah, Daly did have some damage, but Daly was actually involved in that last caution, so I don't know if he's picked up more. I'll go back and find out for you.
It also, with that damage you just talked about, him getting from the last caution could have been affecting his speed, and while he was dropping back, finally just threw up his hands and says, I got to bring this thing to pit road, get this thing at least up to speed again, if possible. That's going to drop him at least a lap down. That's one of the troubles of pitting under green here at Phoenix. You are almost guaranteed to lose at least 1, maybe 2 laps under green flag.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say that his machine was definitely overheating, and he didn't really have much of a choice there. I'd say that that's a pit stop that he didn't want to have to make, and he's had to make it. So
we're talking about Brian Cybery running towards the back of the pack. Well, he's worked his way now up to 11th, following behind his teammate Jeremy Boucher, and he's got Deshaun Gorham behind him in the 23. Just to update the fallout of our first 2 cautions, we already mentioned about Brandon King, the first retiree of the event. Robert Kenny, who we saw have a real moment over into turn 1. He's been on pit road for the last 6 minutes, 12 laps down. Matt Dyer also on pit lane for the last 5 laps. He is currently 5 laps down to the leaders, been on pit road for about 2 minutes in time. Travis Daly with his pit stop now 2 laps down. And other drivers that are off the lead lap, Justin Mayer, Nathan Hall, Justin Durand, who got a piece of the second caution stack up, as well as Braden Carroll. So right now, we've got 20 drivers running on the lead lap of currently 24 scored on the racetrack.
yeah, a couple of things to note there. Braden Carroll's actually just rolled down pit lane as well. Robert Kennedy has just left the service, so he's out of running and out of contention for this evening. So Braden Carroll's interesting because there are a lot of scrape marks along the right-hand side of his car. They may have been recent. It doesn't look like in any way that was on his car. I don't think that was on his car earlier, so I have a feeling he's made a contact with the wall there and just decided to bring it down.
All right, talk about the long run here at Phoenix. 2 drivers, and maybe 1 driver that kind of jumps out to the forefront that has a very good long run car. That's a driver that was in the Final 4 for the championship last season. Last year's Talladega winner, Dylan Stipe. He has moved into the top 10 and is now knocking on the door of the top 5, looking to the inside of Justin Belmonte. That car has been able to get back to the throttle through the center of the corner quicker than just about anybody else up here inside the top 10.
Okay, updates. I've just been having a look through. Braden Carroll got very tight going into turn 1 and just slapped the outside wall, so he's clearly got steering damage. Matt Dyer got incredibly loose off of 3 and 4 and spun the car, ended up making heavy contact with the inside wall. So both of those guys' chances to pick up big swags of points, both gone.
And the thing of it is, too, last week, iRacing put out a new damage model for all the different cars on the sim. And I've talked with a number of drivers since then, and they say, the contact we make with each other and with the outside wall, we wouldn't necessarily think that it's going to lose us a couple miles per hour or affect the way that the car handles, but it's completely the opposite. And so, drivers that are having these little hiccups, and while it looks like something that they might be able to come back from, it affects the car just that much that they're having to come to pit road. They're having to spend the time getting that damage repaired, and it's consequentially taking them out of the running of winning this race.
Yep, and it's something interesting to note as well, because it's when you think of racing and the way that it works, right? End of the season, maybe you'd swap out a car, maybe you get a new car model coming through and talking about the next generation of NASCAR that will be coming to us in the near future with the next is it Gen 6 updates that'll be coming, I think, next year. So those sorts of things you expect at the end of a year. Well, this isn't just that simple. I mean, it's an esport, and one of the benefits of an esport is that you can make fine tweaks to it all the time. You can just change little things. We just mentioned a little bit ago that multi-groove racing, they made a small change to try and really open that up. They've added bubbles to the wall. If you actually go and run the super speedway races now as well, the cars are much less likely to be bump drafting. The pocket of air between the cars is actually a lot more, and the driver at the front of the field now at a super speedway race actually controls the field and controls who can really get past him. So a lot of changes on that side of things. Multi-groove racing, that's the biggest change that we're looking at here, and you mentioned it, the damage model. Some drivers that'll suit, some drivers that won't suit. And part and parcel of being an iRacing driver and a successful iRacing driver is your ability to adapt to those changes right throughout a season. You see it in just about any other esport. Maybe look at something like League of Legends, Dota, Heroes of the Storm, those sorts of styles. Something like WoW, whereby you've got specific builds, specific play types, you've got itemization, those sorts of things. Makes a slight tweak in the way that a champion or a hero may play, may actually relegate a pro from the top level down to one of the lower tiers. Well, if you're going to be successful, and you're going to be successful for an extended period of time, you have to adapt. some of the drivers that are doing that so well. Mike Tellier, the guys that aren't doing that well, it actually makes me worried for the championship hopes of the SDM guys. So I'm thinking, Bushi and Cybery. They're making their way through the field. They've got pace. Maybe Phoenix doesn't suit them. Let's have a look at it again next week, and let's change our minds then.
Yeah, we end up seeing them the last 2 weeks get the stage wins as well. They end up winning stages 1 and 2 at both Homestead and Las Vegas, and then closed out the deal with Cybery going to victory lane at Homestead and Bushi last week at Las Vegas. Doesn't look like they're going to be getting the first stage win here tonight anyways. The highest running of the team, Oscar Jensen in 7th, and you got Cyber just on the outside of the top 10 and 11th with Bushi right behind him in 12th. The guy that's on the move, but I don't think he's got enough time because there's only about 4.5 laps left here in this first stage, but that is Dylan Stipe. He might get up to that 4th position, and we mentioned about Mike Tellier, how he's trying to get his first top 10 and top 5 of the season. Same can be said for Dylan Stipe. His best finish so far this year, 12th, and that was last week at Las Vegas, as he's got a major block thrown on him there into turn 1.
Yeah, look, Tellier definitely does not want to let him get around, does not want to give him points. I actually feel like Stipe may have taken tires. That's why he's charging through the field. His pit stop's actually a little bit longer than a fair few others that are around him. Maybe he just took on a little bit of fuel. He did pit before David Duran, and David Duran actually had a 35-second stop, whereas Stipe's was a 43-second, so pit lane transit time, not necessarily the stop. So I'm a little bit curious as to whether or not he did take tires, because it does look like he spent a lot more time during pit lane. Maybe that's to try and buy himself some track position, track advantage right now, put himself right up there and put himself in the question.
Could definitely be some good strategy on the part of this 4 machine to at least get himself some stage points, but also could be a race-winning strategy depending on what happens here when we get into the second and, of course, the final stage. With Sean English out in front, depending on what his future plans are, we don't know if he's going to be running the remainder of the season. He didn't make the first 3 starts so far this year, so the question is he picking up a potential playoff point here if he's able to win his way into the playoffs, or is he winning a playoff point that another driver could potentially use, and English isn't planning on running for the championship? We'll have to obviously cross that bridge when we come to it, as the proverbial white flag will be in the air. He'll see the green and white checkered flag next time by.
Yeah, look, the other thing to do is just show up, run, see if you fit in with the field. He clearly has the pace, like I've said. I've seen him multiple times. He's young. He doesn't have the most stable head on his body, and that comes with experience. Actually, Stipe is going to send it down the inside of Tellier, and I tell you what, if he's got the tires for it, Tellier's done a big send into 3 and 4 to try and hold on to that position. Is he going to get it before the yellow comes out? I don't think he will, and Stipe actually gets loose off of 3 and 4. Stipe is in charge of calling the cautions, so I would have been in my Tellier shoes. I would have been saying, come on, call it, the stage is over, call it.
I mean, I know Dylan Stipe wants to get those 9 stage points for finishing second place, but you don't want to wreck and take yourself out of the race win picture as well in that attempt.
No, look, hey, who needs it? It's just a couple of stage points. Who needs them at the end of the day? Stipe, what a charge. What a great drive from him. We've got to remember that he's the best positioned driver out of all the guys that did take those early pit stops under both of the caution periods here. What advantages can he take out of that? Honest to God, I have this feeling in the back of my mind that he may have taken tires. I'm just looking at his lap times. They're very, very similar to the cars around him, so maybe not. I'm not, totally and utterly convinced that that's the case. Maybe he just has, like you said, that really, really good long run car. Anything could theoretically be possible. He is going to have a very short pit stop here. He's got extra fuel on board that a lot of these other drivers didn't have. Couple things to note. End of that stage. With 2 cautions, you can make it the full length of stage. So I reckon it is about that 40 to 45 lap mark in terms of fuel mileage. What's that going to do for us in terms of the background? Well, it's going to mean that it's going to have to do 2 stops, I think, to get home in the final stage tonight. I don't think he can do it on any less than that. Well, can you save some extra fuel? There's a few questions that stage raises, more so than answers. So I'm keen, man. It's setting up a really good motor race tonight.
Getting set to find out what the grid's going to look like to start our second stage here this evening, as Sean English and company come down to the attentions of their pit crews. David Durand in the 24 will be the recipient of the lucky dog under this caution. So 20 drivers will be back on the lead lap when we get back green. And Right now, the two drivers that we kind of were watching in that dogfight for second place coming to the stage end, Mike Tellier and Dylan Stipe, they're the only two drivers in the field here tonight that had top 10 finishes last year that actually are still up here inside of the top 10. Other drivers that finished inside the top 10 have struggled in the early stages. We just mentioned David Duran getting the lucky dog. He finished fifth here a year ago. Tristan Mayer, who's been all out of shape today, finished fourth. And Brandon King, who was the first driver out of the race, had a podium finish of third here 1 year ago.
Yeah, look, David Duran himself, he's actually found himself in the wars a little bit. That is definitely not a clean car that I'm looking at. Look, it's part and part of racing. Sometimes you just got to accept the blows when they come to it. But the car itself, it's not in bad shape. I think he's just biding his time, just looking after everything he's got. I think he'll be hanging onto those tires. He'll be hoping for a little bit more caution running. Maybe right now at the back end of the stage, get the car and all the repairs they can get it as straightened out as possible. I still think he's got pace. I still think he's there or thereabouts. Stipe, what a run from him. He's actually lost a spot off pit lane. Who's gained a ton of spaces off pit lane? Is actually Jeremy Boucher. I'm actually curious. I have a feeling Boucher didn't take tires there, because remember how I was saying that the pit stops earlier were Duran did a 35-second pit lane transit time and Stipe did a 41-second transit time? Boucher only did a 35-second transit time there. So I don't think he's taken tires, potentially. Or he's got the head screwed on and he's taken less fuel, expecting more cautions. Could be multiple things going on here.
He either went with fuel only or he went with a two-tire strategy, as did his SRD teammate, the 72 of Tim Hendry. This moved Hendry up to the 12th restarting spot, and as you mentioned, Bushi now up to third. So this is going to be interesting because we're going to get to see if the 73 can stay up here with the rest of the competition. And if he can, you can bet that drivers around him are going to be taking notice of that. And let's say we end up having a late race yellow at the end of this event. Some drivers are going to think, maybe the two tires, less time on pit road would be the way to go rather than taking on four.
I honestly think that those guys right now, they're just building information profiles. The reason that they're doing this is they want to look at how aggressive drivers are on them with fresh rubber versus old rubber. Alternatively, how effective is the two-tire strap with the amount of rubber that's now been laid down on the track.
Green flag set to come back out here as we begin stage two. Sean English through the gears quickly, and he's left the field out to dry. Tellier's going to move to second. They're stacked up from third place on back. 3 wide in a couple areas.
Actually, just listening, Tellier was actually complaining about the restart of English on in-game comms because he definitely did back the pace off. Tellier maintained his pace. Look, doesn't matter. Tellier's on the inside of him now.
Oh, we got a wreck in the back. That's Brian Sibery nearly losing it. What a save over in turn 3.
Oh, look, if they've kept that together, I don't know how. Yellow flag is still not in the area. So this could be a major save, especially for Sibery with his championship hopes.
Absolutely. I mean, that car was sideways in the middle of turn 3 with them in a 4-wide situation around him. The fact he was the only driver involved and able to straighten that thing back out, incredible job not only by him, but everybody else in the vicinity. We remain under the green flag at this point. Best battle right now is going to be around the 5th position. Spencer Hardison makes his first appearance inside the top 5. He looks behind him and sees Alonso Chicano, Jacob Grant, and company trying to crack their way up into the top 5 as well.
I'm just keeping an eye on Sibery up there in the background. He's actually just letting cars go right now. He's just cruising, looking after his machine. He said, all right, look, I've obviously burned off a lot of my stuff right here. Let's look after it. The racing right throughout the field, it continues to be close. Phoenix, remember, it's not an easy track. There's been a lot of mistakes made all week here in terms of the NIS races, and a lot of these drivers will have had a long period this week down.
Sibery has spun. Blaine Woodruff and Justin Durand have gotten a piece of it on the front straightaway. 4th caution flies.
Well, that boggles the mind. I know Sibery was taking it easy. He was definitely taking it easy, trying to cool those tires back off, make sure they settled back in. So whatever's happened there, that is concerning for Sibery.
We'll go back and see what happened and pull out the pencil and write in the notebook that if you're the 73 of Jeremy Bushi, whether it was 2 tires or fuel only, strategy did not work. He dropped like a rock outside of the top 10. He's now 13th after restarting up in the 3rd position.
Yeah, just having a look at Siberi's again, it looked like he lost it a little bit on the initial phase of the corner exit. Then he gathered it up and then tried to get back to the throttle and it just went again. So sort of like a two-phase loss in terms of rear stability. But whatever setup they're running and whatever tweaks he's made, it's not helped that car at all.
Somebody else lost it up ahead of him too, and I think it might have been the 77 here of Blaine Woodruff. And yes, indeed, that was the case. Boy, he took a shot into the inside wall, back up the track, and I think he might have clipped another driver there. That might have been the 72 of Tim Hendry that might have gotten a slight piece of it with the right front.
Oh, no, everyone makes it through. He gets through completely and utterly unscathed. So that's actually a really good job by all drivers involved. That's so lucky.
Especially when you got a car
for a lot of drivers.
Yeah, I mean, the front straightaway has that wall down there protecting drivers coming onto pit lanes. So while it seems like a rather wide track, it is congested when you've got a car spinning because they're almost invariably going to come back up the track. And it's your job as a driver to try and figure out, when I get to them, which lane are they going to be blocking?
Well, which of many lanes? Because remember, when a car's directly across the track like that, there ain't no way getting through on two lanes, that's for sure. Oh, look, I mean, yeah, it looks, like we said, it's a difficult track. It's not easy. A lot of the drivers are adapting. Right now, the temperature is really falling off, so excuse the language, I'm going to have to go and do the conversions because I convert it from filthy Celsius over to correct Fahrenheit. But it was at 45 degrees Celsius a little bit earlier in the evening. It's dropped off about 10 degrees Celsius, so that's going to end up being somewhere around 20, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. So
Sean English is going to be the one to get us back under green with Mike Tellier in second. Oscar Jensen was able to jump up to third place with now Dylan Stipe and Spencer Hardison in the top five. Lucky Dog driver was the 17 of Tristan Mayer, so that will put 20 cars on the lead lap when we go back green. Blaine Woodruff, who had that hard hit with the front end of his machine, he is going to be several laps down. Still, the crew attending to his race car on pit lane. It looks like when he returns to the track, we would have 26 drivers that still remain in this event, as Matt Dyer, Travis Daly, Braden Carroll, they've all come back out onto the racing surface. Some of them 1, 2, 3 laps down, but then you've got Carroll 10 laps down and Matt Dyer 23 laps down. For Matt Dyer right now, it's just all about hoping that this is a little bit more of a carnage race and more drivers retire out of the event so that way he can pick up positions and subsequently spots.
Yeah, and that's Dyer's. That's the way that he drives in a nutshell. He's very much aware of what he needs to do and strategy aware. And to be honest, he's probably one of the smartest drivers I've seen throughout the field. He recognizes when he's not necessarily the quickest driver out there, but he still attempts to give himself the best opportunity to take a bag of points away with him. Whether that be through alternative strategy that just posits him in a really good spot out on the racetrack, pitting at the right time, all these sorts of things. Matt Dyer is always looking for an advantage, whatever form that comes to him in.
Matt Dyer, 5th in the overall standings coming into tonight's event. 2 top 10s in the first 3 races. Doesn't look like he'll get a top 10 here tonight, but we've seen stranger things happen in certain races, and he could maybe be able to sneak one out tonight, depending on what happens here in the final 140 laps as English back up through the gears again, opens up the distance between himself and Mike Tellier, and now the battle's going to be behind him for the 3rd position. It's Jensen and Stipe back at it.
Yeah, Jensen, Stipe, Tellier was didn't get the best corner entry that he was looking to into 1 and 2 right there. Either his entry line was just a little bit compromised because he had to make sure that he was blocking off Jensen, he was blocking off Hardison, he was blocking off Stipe. All those guys were looking to try to get underneath him on the inside line, but he's done a good job. Let's settle back into it once again.
Stipe nearly losing it off of turn 4. May have made a little contact with Jacob Grant and maybe with the outside wall. He now goes way up the track there in turns 1 and 2, opening the door for Chicano and Caleb Smith to make a move. How about the 25? First time we've mentioned his name tonight.
He's right now. Mike Tellier is just all over the track. He's blinking as well, so double hazard that's really going on there. Tellier was all sorts of messed up heading into turn 3 and 4. Gathered it up on the outside lane. Had to let Jensen by, but what a save from Tellier. That could have been night over for him, but he's kept it out. He's kept it on the racetrack, and he's only lost 1 spot out of that. That's a great save.
Oscar Jensen able to take advantage, moving into the second position. Now we'll see if he's got anything for the 60 up ahead of him. No, no! He's going to get hooked around and into the outside wall up in turn 4. Caution is going to fly. A battle for second gone wrong.
Netcode, 100% netcode. I had a perfect view of that looking back down the track. So it was a little bit of netcode, but Jensen left the door open. Tellier put it down there on the inside, and then Jensen just tries to come back down the road, and unfortunately, Tellier's already there.
And then Jensen, waiting for the field to go by, thought he was clear to back his car back down the track, and Blaine Woodruff enters into the picture and got him in the back. Woodruff's car sitting there at the entrance of pit road, just in front of those sand barrels where the pit road wall starts.
I think he's just making the most of a bad situation. It's possible that he could be stuck on the barrels, but I think he's just enjoying himself just before he parks it for the night, so don't take too much out of that.
Here's a look at it through 3 and 4, and yeah, I mean, the other thing too, it almost kind of looked like maybe the 46 of Jensen diamond the corner and tried to come down low. Tellier was hooked right down there on the yellow line. Yeah, you just really can't, especially here at a track that's got such low banking as Phoenix.
Yeah, you've got to be aware. Well, if there's a car underneath you, you can't do that. You've got to adjust your corner entry line. So,
take another angle at it. I mean, watch right here. Tellier's committed down there to the yellow line, and from that angle, it's kind of hard to tell, but the previous one, it does look like the 46 comes down. I'm not necessarily certain that Oscar Jensen was expecting Mike Tellier was going to be able to get back to the throttle that soon and actually get alongside him before they got off of turn 4.
Look, it's oh, okay. So, update. Oscar is not happy. He thinks Mike made the dirty move there. Mike has just put his car in an opening. Like many race drivers have said it over the years. If you don't go for a gap, then you're no longer a racing driver. Yeah, look, there's a little bit of that involved, but that was a huge gap. That was a huge gap. I think that one's on Jensen. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not just sitting here and trying to just say, hey, look, you know, we haven't seen a lot of Jensen over the recent times, whereas Tellier's always out and out here. Honestly, to be perfectly honest with you, there was a gap there. And I think Tellier was, I think he's gotten on the brakes. He's tried to slow the car down. He's seen a gap there. He's lifted off the brakes and he's sent the car in there. I think that's a legitimate move. I think that Jensen is the one that he's quite rightly suffered here because he's left the door open. This is all on Jensen for my liking.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you because two things that I look at when it comes to racetracks like this where drivers all want the same piece of real estate. The first thing that I noticed was Mike Tellier, his left sides never came off the yellow line, so he never changed his lane going through the corner, stayed stationary on that inside line. The second thing was when the contact was made, Mike Tellier was already halfway alongside of Oscar Jensen, so it's not as if Jensen was surprised that the 97 was alongside of him. He had plenty of time to not come down. He should have known that the 97 car was there. So, you know, that's either a driver or maybe even a spotter error, not letting him know that there was a car that was inside. Because Mike Tellier, it wasn't like he was just barely left your quarter panel. He was right alongside him.
And it's not like I'm not showing that Jensen actually turns in any sharper or that he opens the wheel. He literally just continues on his corner like nothing has happened. There's nobody there on his inside, and of course that's going to happen. He's got a horrid entry to 3 and 4. He's come down and driven across the nose of another driver. All on Jensen. All on Jensen for my liking.
Now that was a battle for second. Tellier has the spot. Jensen now on pit road, 2 laps down, continuing to get that car repaired. Right now scored in the 23rd position as lights out atop the pace truck, and we're going to go back green flag racing once again. You have to wonder if you're Sean English, if you might be enjoying having these short spurts, because he gets some tremendous restarts and looks like he's going to do so again.
Yeah, and have a look at the guys that are in behind him as well. Hardison has been watching these last few restarts, and he's learned. He's got that car nearly all the way down the inside of Mike Tellier, but Mike Tellier just sends it deep, runs really good job on that high line. Seems to enjoy that high line going through 1 and 2. That seems to be where he prefers the car to be running. We'll see how well that he pulls it up this time, because this time Tellier's on the outside and Hardison's down on the inside.
Spencer Hardison's only made one start this season. That was back at Homestead, Miami, where he finished second place, and now trying to see if he can finish one spot better here tonight at Phoenix as he slots into third. Braxton Dewees, who gave me a little bit of heart failure going to turn one that restart. I thought he was going to try and shoot the gap up the middle 3 wide, but he now slots into fourth, and he's going to try and get to the right rear quarter panel to make a move for third.
Yeah, I think Hardison was a little bit wishful thinking, trying to think that he could get all the way up along Tellier. Look at the line that Tellier has taken through 3 and 4 now. He really wants to run that mid to high line, so it's sort of like a really mid-low entry, run it through the high portion on the mid corner, and then back to the middle, not all the way down. So not a complete diamond, but what he's trying to do is he's trying to maintain that momentum. He's trying to not burn up his tires by having to force the brakes. When you're on the brakes, you put a lot of heat, extra brake work through those tires, a lot of extra load as well. He's just trying to be nice and cruisy, nice and easy on them. It wouldn't surprise me. You give it 5 or 10 laps, where the Tellier is actually starting to be a lot faster than English here, just from the adjustments that he's made to the way he's driving the car.
Right now, the gap between the top two, 0.3 of a second. You see Mike Tellier down there onto the apron, the dogleg here on the back straightaway. Of course, back in the older days when Phoenix International Raceway opened up, that was all grass. It then was paved, and then, of course, in the last couple of years, NASCAR moving the start-finish line from here over to what is tonight's back straightaway over in the middle of that dogleg. And I think about that dogleg there as well, we see it here when some of these drivers go down there. We'll see if maybe someone goes down here as an example. Nope, none of the top 5 going to oblige me this lap. But you could definitely see that the car gets somewhat upset when it goes down there off the racing surface of the track down onto that apron dogleg area. And a lot of times I hear that can affect the splitter, that can affect the suspension. So it's kind of a risk reward, gaining those extra 2-3 of a second going down there and possibly tearing up your equipment.
And look, that's exactly the statement that I was actually going to make about that. Look, you go across a bump, we all know it. There's speed bumps out there in every one of ours, each and every day, each and every lives, So it's risk versus reward. How fast can you... Well, I took my parents. My parents have actually been over this weekend, took them driving, and my little car with its old suspension went over a couple speed bumps scraping because it's not used to extra passenger weight. Well, hope these drivers have been working out because they will want to be keeping the weight inside those cars to a bare minimum this evening.
Absolutely. As the battle's going to be for the 4th position, Hardison, who had a good, decent restart there, was up in 2nd place, is now dropped back to 4th. He's got Alonso Chicano, Dylan Stipe right behind him, along with Justin Belmonte. Remember, these drivers know that there's going to be at least one more caution that comes out now between here and the checkered flag. That will be at the conclusion of lap 100. And if my calculations are correct, they're going to be awfully close on being able to make it on fuel, because I think that the fuel window, based on what we saw in that first stage, is somewhere in the 47 to 49 lap margin. With these early cautions we had here in the second stage, I should say, they might be able to make it, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, and keep your eyes on a few different cars. The cars that I'm looking for right now at the back end of this stage, and I'm talking, these guys are going to be pitting at the back end of lap 49 of the stage. I'm looking at Boucher. I'm looking at Hendry. I've been watching these guys' lap times now for a little while. I can pretty much guarantee that these guys are on the older tires. They do not take tires. Hendry right now running 29 zeros, Boucher running 28 fives. All the cars around them with damage and fresher rubber are running like 28 ones, bits and pieces at times. So they're gaining time. They're sacrificing this stage. I honestly believe it may be the correct decision. I could be completely wrong here. I love being wrong. But we've seen a lot of cautions tonight as well. These guys are going to have fresher rubber. They're going to have options in this final stage. And I can tell you for a fact that if Boucher gets the option to give Hendry a win and lock him into those playoff spots, he's going to do it. Alternatively, his strategy is going to be to block somebody else out from doing it, block somebody else from having that relaxed state for the remainder of the season until we get to playoffs.
Looking here at the battle for 9th place, Caleb Smith in the 25 and Nick King in the 43, now making his way around the 23 of Deshaun Gorham. Smith right now up inside the top 10. We were going to focus on him prior to that last caution coming out, and He is currently holding down a top 10 spot. Nick King in that 43 car after the hard luck in the early stages of last week's race at Las Vegas, having a decent run. And how about the 10? 10 is moving his way up there towards the front. He's about to make a move for third place, almost a slide job into turn 3 on Braxton Dewees.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's doing a great job. I was just about to comment that Braxton Dewees, what a great run that he's having here tonight. He's slid a fair way down in terms of championship standing over the last couple of weeks. The thing's not completely and utterly going his way. He lost 12 spots in the championship, same as Robert Kennedy. Kennedy's going to lose a lot more starts given that he's out of the race already tonight. But if Braxton can do a great job, if he can recover some momentum here, what he's actually doing is he's putting himself in with a sniff of a win tonight. Could you imagine if Braxton could lock himself into those playoffs right now? How good that would be. Look at Chicano as well. Chicano showed a real turn of speed over the last couple of races as well. So all of a sudden, these guys are getting their machines sorted. Maybe this patch with these cars, these tires, these aero models, and the multi-groove racing style really suits these drivers.
Well, so far this season, we've had 3 drivers lock themselves into the playoffs that were not in the playoffs last season. And if Braxton Dewees was able to win here tonight, he'd be the 4th driver. First mistake we maybe saw all night long out of Sean English. That car got pretty loose off of turn 4. Scraped the outside wall a little bit with the right front or the right rear flare of his Chevrolet.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in on it. I'm showing no damage. So that car, it would have been a change of pants moment, shall we say, a brown seat moment. But other than that, he's all good and ready to go again.
Battle for the 4th spot. Dylan Stipe now to the inside of Braxton Dewees. Actually, now it's going to be a battle for 5th as Belmonte gets a good run to the outside. We saw Dylan Stipe at the end of the first stage mount a charge and get his way up to 3rd. Almost got 2nd for Mike Tellier, and now trying to make the charge here again late. However, a little more than 3 seconds between himself and the race leader. A lot of traffic to still contend with, and 14 laps to go in this second stage.
Yeah, so what that tells me is that English is good on restarts. He loves controlling the field. If somebody can beat him off pit lane, I think he's actually going to be in trouble right at the start of the stage. Very, very good on the long run pace. I'm just keeping my eye on lap times right throughout the field. English running 27.9s. He's about the only driver into the 27s still. Everyone else is basically up into those 28s. Chicano is matching him for lap times. He is the only driver matching him for lap times.
Driver that is falling back right now is the 14 of Spencer Hardison. He's now lost the 8th position to Caleb Smith. Up further, it's going to be Belmonte and Dylan Stipe continuing to battle for 5th place. And the Clutch Drop Cup Series, they run their schedule right alongside the NASCAR Cup schedule, with them at Phoenix here today, the Clutch Drop at Phoenix here tonight. And if we're going to liken some of the things of the NASCAR race today, one thing that has not played a factor yet is green flag pit stops. And I'll tell you what, there were a lot of drivers in NASCAR today that got busted for green flag pit stops on pit road. So when we get to this 3rd and final stage, to your point, pit road could be the main deciding factor between who's going to win this race and who isn't.
Yeah, time spent on pit road, time spent speeding in pit road, managing those timing lines. Look, I know a few guys that really know how to get the most out of the pit stops, and everything that is the best way to go through those, really make up some time in pit lanes. So I'm going to have to ask them for some of their tips, because I am certainly not a god when it comes to pit stops. Some of the guys in Clutch Drop are absolute pit road gods. Who knows what will happen? What I really want to see now is I want to see someone going after Sean English. I really want to see somebody just throw something at him, right? Just ask a question of him. I'm not saying you have to be up there, you have to be racing him every single lap for every single one of those corners, but what I want to do is see what his mentality is going to do the instant that he comes under a little bit of pressure, because it's a completely different style of racing. Someone's on pit road right now.
That's the 27 of Bob Carroll, and he's very slow coming to pit road. I thought I saw some smoke coming out from underneath that machine. Not 100% certain if it's a mechanical problem or he might possibly have run out of fuel, because I think he might have gone with a fuel-only pit stop, and that was quite a while ago. So he might actually be out of fuel and had to limp that car back to pit lane.
Yeah, his car, the engine was still running in that thing. I just jumped in and checked, made sure that everything was A-okay. Yeah, it's A-okay, so I wouldn't be too worried about him for now.
Saw Tim Hendry go a lap down, so he's hoping for that stage caution to come out sooner rather than later. He and Justin Durant, the only cars -1. And we now know that Oscar Jensen, after sitting on pit road for a good portion of time getting the damage repaired, has actually had his car pushed back to the garage area. So right now it looks like he will finish in either the 25th or 26th position here this evening at Phoenix.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. Unfortunately, that is racing sometimes. Look at Dyer, though. Dyer is going to just continue grabbing spots. Jensen, well, look, buddy, you were running up there. You had the pace, but you didn't provide room, and that's what's going to happen. Drivers, you've got to earn your respect around here. You can't just go out there and expect to be given the respect. Telly has been around for a long time. He knows how to race against these guys. He knows how to get the best out of his machinery, and he knows where to put his car. He put it there in the right spot. Caution comes out. I'm not sure what that's for.
Nick King and Tristan Mayer on the front straightaway brings out this caution 6 laps prior to when the second stage was going to come to a close.
Be interesting to see whether they call it. I don't think they're going to call it. Oh, that's unfortunate for Nick King. That is super unfortunate for him. Just nowhere to go.
Looks like he might be out of the race too, as he has already gone back to the garage area. It looks like this was started with the 17 of Tristan Mayer off of turn 4.
Unfortunate is that May has actually been the one to cause that one, but he's going to be the one that walks away with the least amount of damage. So he's going to be right to continue. There's this tiny crinkle in the left rear bumper of that car, and he's totally fine to keep going. There'll be a few scrapes down the right-hand side. He'll get that fixed up, get it back out in the racetrack, see what happens. Well, now, I think with that second caution, it's exactly the same thing that happened in the first stage. These guys are safe on fuel. I don't think that they need to come down pit lane. If, for my liking, you're somebody, say, Tim Hendry, somebody, say, Boucher, any of these sorts of guys, I'm coming down pit lane right now. I'm going to get as much fuel in this car as I possibly can. I might even take my next set of tires right now, get my lap back, don't have to pit. I'm going to be right up at the pointing end of things next time around.
Yeah, why not? Cycle around up there to the front of the field when all the race leaders come down pit road at the end of the stage, and one driver that is taking that advice is, well, not somebody back outside the top 10, but the then race leader, Sean English. He hits pit road along with David Durand, Jeremy Bushi, Derek Schilling. They're going to come down pit lane, and we'll see if they do indeed take on a set of tires here, because they could very likely be first through fourth when we get to the end of this second stage and the start of the final stage of this race.
Interesting. Just keeping an eye on English. English looks to be only taking fuel, I think? Not sure if I saw his... No, his car went up on the jacks. Just right sides. Just right sides.
And actually, the 60 is still on pit road. An extended stay for Sean English here. So there might be something more to it. It could be. Who knows? But whatever the case, now he's down and away.
No, he took both sides. He took both sides. Okay, so he did take a full set of tires. So that's interesting.
Yeah, he spent about 48 minutes on pit road. I mean, regardless, he probably would have started towards the rear of the field anyway, even with a 4-tire pit stop. Wonder if maybe he had a little bit of damage that we didn't really know about. Maybe brushed the wall at some point and was just making sure that that car was going to be aerodynamically sound.
He just said something on the radio. Give me 2 moments. I'm just going to have to go back and recheck that.
All right, so an update on drivers involved in that latest incident. Both drivers, Tristan Mayer and Nick King, have retired out of the race, as well as the 27 of Bob Carroll. So they're starting to pile up there in the infield. That is now 7 drivers that are currently in the garage area, leaving us 17 drivers that are still in this race. And with Tim Hendry getting the lucky dog under this caution, 17 will be back on the lead lap for what's going to probably be a little bit of a sprint here to finish out the second stage. So officially, the drivers that came to pit road were Jeremy Bushi, Sean English, David Durand, Derek Schilling, as well as Tim Hendry, the lucky dog driver. The driver that will get the lucky dog when the stage caution comes out will be Justin Durand. He is the first car and only car 1 lap down. Travis Daly also was on pit road 2 laps down in 19th place. It'll be Tellier, Chicano, Dewees, Belmonte, and Coleman that are going to get us back underway. None of these drivers have a stage win yet this season.
Interesting. Interesting. I'll tell you what, who stands the most to benefit out of this? I actually really like where Braxton Dewees has positioned himself so far this evening. He's put himself in a really good opportunity to pick up a swathe of points. Whole big swathe of points. So it's just like listening into the comms. Sean English, new to the league, right? He's learning the league rules. So it was just the conversation that was actually going on was related to giving him an end of line penalty just for pit lane violations. Basically pitted in, he stayed on the left hand side. For those of you who aren't a part of iRacing, if you're driving down the left hand side of pit lane, you're driving through all the pit lane garages, your car just phases through all the other cars there. There's no real contact to be made in that section. So Sean did actually do that. He's not allowed to. So that's what we were just discussing. So a good learning lesson and a good way to do it as well. The best part about Clutch Drop, you have a look at the drivers that are doing the administration and penalty giving and all those sorts of things. Dylan Stipe, very easy to talk to drivers. So this is one of the better leagues for it.
Mike Tellier just took the proverbial white flag, if you will, here for stage 2. The battle behind him is going to be for second place between Alonso Chicano and Braxton Dewees. Look at Dewees way down there on the inside, almost shaking hands with the inside.
Oh!
Whoa, what a move, as now Chicano crosses him over. The two make a little bit of contact, but keep it clean off the final corner. Looks like Braxton's going to get second, Chicano third, and Belmonte got the best seat in the house as he crossed behind them in fourth.
That's a great job. Great job by both drivers to pull it up there. They both threw it in there side by side, and then whoo! Braxton Dewees actually just said on the race chat that he actually missed his braking marker, but they did both of them, perfect managing of that. Dewees was too quick in there. Chicano realized it, went to the apron to avoid the accident. I think that's fine, all right? Both of those, they didn't use it as an over-aggressive overtaking move. Dewees left enough room for Chicano to come back up onto the track. Both drivers managed that absolutely perfect. Real-life NASCAR, there is a potential for penalty passing below the yellow line there. No overtake was made. Let it on go. Both drivers were just doing the best they could to look after the cars that they're in, look after their points hopes, and they had an all-out drag race to the finish line. Great driving.
Second stage, where we've had a really good battle for the second position coming to the close. It was between Mike Tellier and Dylan Stipe back in stage 1. This time Braxton Dewees and Alonso Chicano at the conclusion of stage 2. And now everybody that did not come to pit road and that caution just prior to stage end, they're coming down this time. So it looks like the 60 of Sean English will re-inherit the race lead. Other drivers that stayed out or that came down pit road with him on that last caution, they'll all cycle up into a brand new looking top 5 when we go back green.
Yeah, so like I said, drivers that were really looking forward to make the most of that pit stop cycle. I think Boucher was just nowhere near in that race at the end of that stage. I think he has managed this absolutely perfectly. Those pit stops and that caution flag come out when it did. Yeah, that played right into Boucher and Hendry, both of those guys as well. They made the perfect pit stops. Those guys, they're as happy as Larry. They are so proud that they got to make that pit stop right when they did. They're out of this little battle. They've grabbed 15, 20 spots. 15, 20 spots out of that. So, great job, guys.
Another driver that's very happy with that caution coming out will be Justin Duran, rather, in the 29. He's the recipient of the lucky dog, and I believe Travis Daly was able to stay ahead of Sean English on that restart, so he actually gets the wave around since all the other lead lap cars ahead of him came to pit road. So now he'll be marked -1, and he would be the recipient of the lucky dog should we get another caution. So right now we've got 18 cars in the lead lap, and we have the potential of 19 cars possibly be on the lead lap if we end up getting another yellow flag. But I want to talk about these 3 drivers that we got up here at the front, actually 4 drivers, Sean English, Derek Schilling, Jeremy Boucher, and Tim Hendry, because they've only got technically 2 green flag laps on their set of tires. Is that going to be enough for guys like Mike Tellier, Braxton Dewees, and Justin Belmonte to take advantage of, or is there just really no difference, do you think, between the sticker tires and 2-lap old tires?
There will be a difference, but you got to remember, look at Sean English's pace as well. His pace has come towards the back end of his set, so this actually plays right into his hands. This is where he really wanted to be. The guys I'm a little bit worried about is probably Tim Hendry. I think he'll probably be struggling. He's been struggling a lot so far this evening, and let's sort of see where he ends up with things. Tellier is the guy that I'd want to be watching on this restart. How quickly can he get by these guys? Because he's going to be alongside Tim Hendry? No, that seems wrong. He's going to be alongside Braxton Dewees, and Dewees is suddenly starting to find some of those tweaks and those changes that he's made to his car. And I tell you what, hasn't he come a long, long way recently in terms of pace? What I'm really disappointed in is Alonso Chicano's pit stops. Look at how many spots he's lost. He picked up a whole bunch of spots due to the pit stops just before the end of that stage. He finished third in the stage. Now he's sitting in what would have been fifth place at the end of the stage. You know, just with where those pit stops have happened. So he's buried back in traffic now. He's around a few guys he doesn't want to be around. He's just behind Evan Coleman, who will be on the outside line. He's just in behind Justin Belmonte on the inside line. So Belmonte's had a great stop, and Coleman, both of those guys, great stops.
Three drivers that actually lost a ton of positions there on pit road. You mentioned Chicano, who will be restarting back in 9th. Dylan Stipe is going to be restarting back in 14th. And Jacob Grant is all the way back in the 17th position. These were drivers that were up inside of the top 10 at the conclusion of the second stage. But Sean English back out in front now after the cycle of pit stops is over, and he'll get stage 3 underway.
Yeah, and this is the final stage. This is 100 laps to crown our champion here in Phoenix tonight. So, look, this is where I wanted to be, and I think Sean English has given up a lot of stage points, but what he's done has set himself up for a victory, because he's just going to check out on all of these guys. His pace has been so far superior to Derek Schilling. It's been so far superior to I'm thinking Boucher, I'm thinking Hendry, the top 4 guys that were just right behind him on this restart. And then all of a sudden you've got Telly who's trying to make his way through. Telly's done a great job. But anytime you're trying to dive and make that many moves, you're going to burn up a lot of tires. So Boucher's going to try and hang on to this as best he can. Keep an eye on Boucher now. Now that Telly has gotten his way through, Boucher, for me, is the guy that I need to keep one eye open for.
Yeah, Tellier and Dewees have now made their way around Hendry, Schilling, and Boucher. They have worked their way up to 2nd and 3rd, now trying to reel in race leader Sean English. And, boy, they're getting really racy back there. That's Chicano. Where do you say he restarted? Back outside of the top 5? Well,
ninth.
he just moved up to 5th.
Wow, I think he's actually just taken 4th. He's down on the inside to grab 4th spot right now. And I tell you what, Tellier goes so deep into 3 and 4, nearly gets into the rear end of Sean English. He was all over the road. He wasn't feeling comfortable. Look at the exit now. Tellier all of a sudden says, hey, Sean, you pitted it a little bit too early. I'm coming for you, buddy.
Yeah,
man, I wish this thing had headlights, because I'd be flashing them in your rear view.
At the same time, when he had to check up, almost getting into him, Braxton Dewees is there to capitalize, and he's been one of the guys that's been able to make up a lot of ground on that back straightaway, running it way down to the inside on the dog leg, and he now is the driver on the back bumper of Sean English, trying to lead for the first time today.
Yeah, Tellier got into the wall. Tellier nearly gets into Chicano. So all of a sudden, Tellier has had this second place locked up and completely under his belt. Oh, Dewees gets into the fence there as well. He's going to put a scrape on it. Tellier is going backwards. That big touch that he had out of 1 and 2 a lap ago has all of a sudden sucked all of the pace out of his machine. Maybe he's just trying to settle back into that groove. I'll tell you what, is that a missing front bumper on Justin Belmonte's machine? Because that thing is absolutely monstering its way through traffic right now.
Absolutely is. No sponsor on the car, but I don't think he really needs a sponsor, because he is still putting on a performance as he's trying to get to the inside of the 10 of Alonso Chicano, who's picked up 6 spots since the restart and now trying to close in on the top 2, who are nose to tail coming off of turn 4.
Yeah, I tell you what. Well, I thought that English was going to be totally fine on this restart. I was wrong. He is not running faster than Braxton Dewees. Dewees, whatever he's done to this car throughout the course of the evening so far, the track has either come to him, his adjustments have come to him, whatever he's done, all of a sudden, maybe pitting underneath that last caution before the end of the stage was the wrong move, because English is just going nowhere. I tell you what, I'm going to go do some digging. I'm going to find out what those other guys are that pitted.
Battle right now is going to be for the 7th position. That's Evan Coleman trying to get around Jeremy Boucher, who's another driver like Sean English, who stayed out at the end of the stage, had pitted on the caution before. Coleman's got some damage there, I just noticed, on the right front of his Toyota Camry. Not sure where that came from, but it hasn't seemed to really affect him that much, as he will move into the 7th spot. Decent run for him, at least for the time being. And one driver that's kind of popped up there inside the top 10 that I just now noticed, that's our winner from a couple of weeks ago at Homestead, Brian Cybery, now into the 6th position. That's a guy that was slideways in a 4-wide situation over in turn 3 about 60 laps ago.
Yeah, so another guy that's just been biding his time. He fell a long way through the field. I think he was just spent most of his night just trying to deal with traffic. Actually, keep your eyes up towards Dewees and Chicano, because all of a sudden this has opened itself up. Chicano's got pace. He'll send it to the inside of 1 and 2. That'll be a move that gets done every single day of the week. Probably take it to the apron here on the backstretch, and he'll get it done around Braxton Dewees. Braxton just jumped on comms and said, yep, it's all yours, buddy. Let's work together on this one.
Kano now going to slot into the 2nd position and will set his sights on Sean English. Caution! Caution is out. I believe it's Jeremy Bushi in the 73. He and Deshaun Gorham have gotten together in the center of 3 and 4.
Well, that is not good for his night. I mean, he's been struggling. He's been trying to adjust things up, really trying to take a different approach, an alternative approach to things. Hasn't worked out for him so far this evening, but he's still got a clean car. So that's the benefit. I wonder whether it's not just a self-spin or what's going on there. I'll just trying to get a look at it.
Watch the 23 of Deshaun Gorham. Oh, yeah, left side of your screen. Looks like Jeremy Bushi got into the back of Caleb Smith. Then he got helped around by Jacob Grant. Deshaun Gorham, trying to avoid, actually went down, make some pretty significant contact with the left front of his car into the inside wall.
Yeah, good job by most of the drivers actually to avoid that one. So it's just checking up. Yeah, you're just going to be a little bit more aware of what's going on in your surroundings and what you're going to do to keep your car safe. Unfortunately, both of those drivers just little errors. That's all it takes sometimes. I don't mind this actually for a lot of the drivers that are towards the back of the field. They're actually pitting to take on that extra bit of fuel. Give themselves that strategy flexibility. You are not taking tires here. That much is for sure. But you definitely want to get down there, get that tank topped off, and just give yourself options, because you can have a shorter stop now at the back end of the race. Guys that have track position like Sean English, Chicano, Dewees, Belmonte, Terrier, Stipe, Coleman. Look, anywhere up to about 10th to 15th, I probably wouldn't be pitting here. Anywhere from 10th back, look, even 6th, 7th back, you could potentially pit. Track position is not going to be as relevant for those sorts of guys. They're not far enough up that something's not going to happen to affect them. But hey, I would be taking the option right now if I'm most of these drivers in this field. If I'm in that top 5, no way you can do it.
A little surprised that the 97 of Mike Tellier didn't come down pit road to try and get some of that right side damage repaired.
Look, he needs to keep his track position. I think he's made the right call there, Seth. I don't agree with that. I think he's made the right call.
I'll tell you what, Sean English, we know that it certainly looked like his pace not quite what it was in the first 2 stages of this race. He was probably the one guy that's not going to like the scenario of that caution coming out, because when he looked in his rearview mirror, lined up 2nd, 3rd, and 4th have been maybe 3 of the most aggressive drivers on restarts and have had really good short-run speed in Chicano, Dewees, and Belmonte. So something says to me when we go back green within the first 2 or 3 laps of that restart, we could be seeing a new race leader.
Yeah, we could. And the other thing to remember as well is that these guys have pace right now, and English has done the restarts nearly identical absolutely every time. These guys aren't stupid. They're going to be watching. They're going to be learning. So these guys are now going to be aware that Sean English goes very, very early on the restarts. I'm going to try and go with him. If they can keep it side by side heading down to turn 1, I think English will be vulnerable.
So it'll be English, Chicano, Dewees, Belmonte, and Tellier, the top 5. Ryan Sibery, Evan Coleman, Spencer Hardison, Caleb Smith, and Dylan Stipe are going to be the top 10. It looks like I said that Travis Daly would have been the lucky dog under this caution. What actually happened under the last yellow, he took the wave around, but then he actually decided to come to pit road. So the lap that he gained actually was not counted. With this caution coming out, he is the lucky dog, but it puts him from 2 laps down to now 1 lap down. So the 15 will still have to rely on another caution to get back on the lead lap, and we have had another driver go to the garage area, Deshaun Gorham, who had that front-end contact with the inside wall. He will finish unofficially in the 19th position as he joins another 8 drivers back in the garage area. Looks like also Matt Dyer has called it an evening. So the only 2 drivers that are still out there on the racetrack off the lead lap, 18th place Travis Daly and possibly soon to be 19th place Blaine Woodruff, but he's got a lot of cars he's still got to pass as he's 40 laps down.
Good on him for getting back out on the race circuit, though. I'd much rather prefer that. So
Sean English got himself a decent restart there, about 2 car lengths as you look back to Alonso Chicano and the different lanes these drivers take on the back straightaway. Some of them up to the outside of the yellow line, some of them right down on the inside of the dog leg. It looks like the battle right now is going to be back around the 6th position. That's where we find Spencer Hardison trying to hold off the 51 of Evan Coleman. Caleb Smith in the vicinity as well.
Yeah, look, all these guys, they've done their learning, they've done their practice now, the stages are now over. They've got to go racing. They want to get a good result for themselves here tonight. They've got to start pushing through, making their strategy work. There's been a lot of... We've had cautions, don't get me wrong, we've had cautions, and short run speed has definitely been important, but we've also had those long runs, and this is a Flatout Cup known for its long runs, so I'm looking at Dylan Stipe to start actually making a lot of ground up this run.
You talked about the fact that more than likely we're going to see these drivers on pit road at least twice, possibly under green flag conditions. I mean, are we seeing the aggressive racing out of these drivers right now because they're trying to pick up as many spots as possible to position themselves for that first round of green flag pit stops?
Yes and no. If I'm in Sean English's shoes, he definitely has to pit twice. Some of the drivers that are at the rear end of the field, ooh, Chicano almost up in the wall there. Send it in a little bit deep, just trying to get clear of Sean English. Gonna come up. He's definitely got the better tires. English, he was alongside of English, and English actually forced him below the yellow line, so he was alongside there. If I'm in Chicano's shoes, I'm not happy with that. English is going to remember, he's a new driver to this league. He has to earn respect. There was an overlap there. English did not respect that.
And I think Mike Tellier might have gotten into the wall again. He certainly was loose coming off of turn 4 and will lose at least 2, maybe 3 positions here. Looks like there is some newly gained right front damage on that FRN Toyota Camry, and that is going to continue to affect him. And I mean, it's got to be difficult for a driver. You talked about this being a rhythm track, and when you are out of rhythm trying to keep the car underneath you, it's got to be difficult to get yourself back into that mindset, get yourself mentally focused once again.
Hang on, change for the race lead. Chicano's actually down on the inside of English. English gets a great run coming into 3 and 4. He's actually going to defend it off. But Chicano is coming. It's something English now has to be aware of. And, well, he is blocking aggressively. He's blocking like the last 10 laps of the race. We've still got 90 laps to go, boys.
Chicano's been better in 1 and 2, whereas English has been better from the back straightaway through 3 and 4. For the time being, English has been able to keep the 10 car at bay, but Chicano trying to wind up the rubber band and try again, runs a little higher there through 3 and 4, about a half groove higher. We'll see if that translates into good front straightaway speed. Behind them, you got a good battle brewing between Braxton Dewees and Justin Belmonte. Belmonte now looks driver's left.
Yeah, he's really trying to set it down on the line. Belmonte's been biding his time actually really, really well mostly throughout this night. And I think he's actually going to get this move done. He's still alongside, and he's got the inside run into the corner. Sends it nice and deep, and I think Dewees actually just made the option. All right, he's got this done. I just need to settle in here, which is a really, really smart driving. That's great racecraft right there. Somebody else, you were mentioning it a little bit earlier on, Brian Cybery. He's now up in a 5th place. He's at the head of cars. There's what, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars that are just there in that little group, and they're all bunched up right behind Brian Cybery, but Cybery's got to the head of that group, and I think he's starting to make some headway, so expect him to just cruise on up to the back of Braxton Dewees soon. And Chicano has settled in. I think Chicano's settling himself in. He's just watching Sean English. I think right now, yeah, sure, you've had to learn some lessons all night, but Chicano hasn't been behind English so far tonight. Tellier has. Tellier's been the one to learn from him. So this is Chicano's chance to just take a read from him. Where's he strong? Where's he weak? Where do I want to send it past him? Alternatively, Chicano's tires could be starting to go off with how aggressive he was trying to overtake English just a little bit before.
He's definitely driving it further into the corner there in turn 3 as well, which will be wearing his tires down just a little bit more. 2 things that are going for him, however, is number 1, there is a difference between his tires and Sean English. Sean English has about maybe 2 or 3 lap older tires than Chicano does. The other thing is fuel. If we go into a long green flag run, that 60 car will have to be on pit road sooner than Alonso Chicano. So Chicano could end up inheriting the race lead just based off of green flag pit stops when that occurs.
Oh, English had a bobble, and then coming into 3 and 4, and then Chicano got real loose on the throttle, but he saved it. He managed to keep the car in the slide without losing time. That's really good driving. I'd say Chicano's going to send it. He's getting there. He's just not quite able to get to the back of it. Belmonte, I think, is coming as well, so we could have a change here at a few laps' time. He's going to diamond it. He's going to over-under him here.
Oh, we were almost 3 wide there through 3. Mike Tellier having to back out of that, and he's going to lose more spots, but no doubt about it, that right front damage is really hurting him. That last time by, he was the slowest lap time inside of the top 10. They took him 3 wide on the back straightaway with Jacob Grant and Jeremy Boucher, and Mike Tellier, he is struggling right now in that 97 machine.
Yeah, really, really struggling. He's been clean and consistent most of the night. He's had a little bit to do with in terms of fighting. He's been trying to put it on and hunt down for English and hasn't been able to do it. Well, I haven't removed my eyes from the front of this field. Belmonte's cruising up here. We're going to have a 3-way fight for the lead very, very shortly.
Well, Justin Belmonte, as we said at the top of the program, 3 races and 3 top 5 finishes, trying to continue that streak, and just the consistency he's had here in the first 3 races, you get the feeling he's not that far out of victory lane. Maybe tonight is the night, as he has been the fastest car of the top 3 for the last 3 laps. That time by, he had a sub 28. The other drivers were low 28, so that 12 car is coming. He's got a good long run machine.
Yeah, he's got a very good long run machine. Take a look at Brian Woodruff, who's just drifted back by the leaders. And he's doing a great job just keeping the car out on track. You mentioned it. It's a long way down, but hey, man, he's still out there on the track. He's still turning laps. Braxton Dewees hasn't fallen off as much as you think he has. Remember I was saying there was that 8-car battle pack that was in behind Cybery? Cybery is a little bit clear of the front of it. Dewees has gone back there, but he's gone back there slowly. There's still probably about half a second or 3/4 of a second gap between him and the 4th position and the group of 8 cars just in there behind him. But I tell you what, the benefits of clutch drop. You got battles right throughout the field. Every single driver is engaged in something, and that makes for great racing. That makes for engaged drivers. That makes for happy drivers.
It's certainly looking like, too, the way these drivers are settled in and there's single battles here and there, that we are going to be looking at a green flag run possibly to the end of this race. So, it starts to get me excited because it's going to be the first time these drivers may have to tackle pit road under green flag conditions.
Yeah, and Phoenix is tricky in terms of that pit road entry. 3 and 4, it's got banking, but it's not really a huge banking. So getting it down there, getting it braked off of 3 and 4, you got to hold as much pace as you possibly can. Number 77 car, Blaine Woodruff has just dropped back through it now. Sorry, I thought he was actually the car that we passed before. That was the 24 machine in there of David Duran that was actually just lapped just before. So Duran's still out there. Woodruff has just fallen back. Look, it's not a pretty car, but he's still out there. Like I said, it's a modified at this point. But Chicano, he's got... I'm not going to say that it's reasonable short. I think he's fast, and he's not slow over a long run. Definitely, if you have a look at how the field is spread out, he's definitely got pace. But I think that in the process of trying to get by English, he just used up a little bit extra of those tires that he didn't necessarily wanted to have to use. And I actually think he just got in the wall coming off a 1 and 2 as well. So expect him to start losing a lot more pace. I have a feeling Belmonte is going to be right here in this picture. Hold on to it, Chicano.
He definitely got loose there off of 4. It did the 10 car, and that's going to allow Justin Belmonte to continue to close up the gap for that 2nd position. Going back to the 77 of Blaine Woodruff, had he retired out of the race with where he was currently at when he was on pit road getting damage repaired, he would have finished in 26th. Right now, he's moved up to the 20th position, and within the next 20 laps, he'll have moved up to 19th place. And why that's important for Blaine Woodruff is because he came into this race 18th in the point stands, and there's still a long ways to go here in the regular season. There's no telling that those 6-7 spots he picks up tonight could translate into 6-7 points that he needs to point his way into the playoffs at the regular season end. I saw that too there with Chicano getting the wall off of turn 2.
Yeah, Chicano strikes me as this really, really aggressive driver, and that when there's somebody else around him, he just wants to drive the wheels off that thing. And what this has really done is allowed English to just gap them. The best possible thing that these two drivers can do just in behind Sean English right now, Belmonte needs to get ahead. Chicano, for my liking, you hate to see it. You really don't want to do it as a driver, but sometimes there's just a phase in the race, somebody else is just that little bit faster, and you can benefit off that. You can sit there, you can watch him, you can read him. Making him make this overtake means that English just drives away from the pair of them, and that is not good for either of these drivers. They want to be right there, because remember, English is going to have to pit in about 4 to 5 laps time.
So as the battle for second place settles for the time being, it looks like. Well, now as soon as I say that, Belmonte gets a nice run out of turn 2 onto the back stretch, and he'll be all over that 10 car going into turn 3.
Yeah, he's got it. He's got it. Chicano had a really poor entry. I think Chicano just eventually just said, yep, look, you've got it. You've got the pace. I'm struggling right now. Let's settle in. Let's go back after him, because English has nearly got a second margin over these guys. So he's right on the verge. In fact, he may have broken the toe. So anytime that these guys were gaining on him just by sitting there and just working together in that draft, they've now potentially lost. So we'll have to see this next time by, this next lap that Belmonte's going to start, what's his lap time like, and what can he really do now that he's got that fresh air?
Now, we saw earlier on in this race a couple of drivers go with fuel only, go with 2-tire pit stops in the middle of stage 1, and it definitely did not work out for them. So obviously there is a huge advantage of fresh tires over old tires. So we know Sean English is going to be having to get onto pit road pretty soon, but what about some of these other guys that are all in the same pit sequence? I mean, I would assume it's got to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game of who's going to be the first one to pit road to take advantage of those fresh tires.
I think you got to come a little bit early. Well, like we said it, right? So there's two thoughts. The first thought is, well, the longer I stay out now, the more options I give myself at the back end of the race. Yeah, but you're not going to have those options. If you go down the pit lane early and you're on those older tires for an extra 5 laps, you're going to be losing, what are we doing now? 28 threes, 28 fours, 28 fives. So if you pit early, your time loss across the stint's about 1.82 seconds, just under that 2-second mark. So you pit early, you're making up that 0.2, 0.3 of a second for those 5 laps. And then you sort of run the tank out to that 90, 95% early pit stop again. You can grab another set of free, there was another free sort of tire stop, and get onto those fresher tires right at the back end of the race. So you're giving yourself all of these little bits and pieces, these margins. So if you're definitely locked into the 2-stop strategy on this final run, you've got to go early, I think. You've got to try and split it up into 3. So running out like this says to me that English thinks he can make it, and he is the one that is least likely to make it out of this front group. Chicano, Dewees, Belmonte, these guys want to go long. They want to go long as possible, because if that caution comes out, they're good. They can get home on the 1 stop. The problem is they're going to be very, very weak at the back end, and that's where Sean English is going to be strong. English wants a safety car or pace car to come out 10 laps to go.
Jeremy Bushi, I think he might be out of fuel as he's trying to get to his pit stall.
Engine. He lost his engine. I just heard of him. Comms.
Tough break there for our winner last week at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Looks like he'll be finishing this evening in either the 18th or 19th position. As the battle for the 8th position, we were watching it happen. It's still on side by side between Dylan Stipe and Caleb Smith. And just looking here in terms of these drivers and how far they can make it, I mean, if we're looking at some of these drivers that last pitted back 45 laps ago, if they come to pit road in the next 7 to 8 laps, they would be splitting this final stage in half. So that might be the strategy for these guys. Of course, there's going to be others that are going to run the risk of until that thing gets out of fuel.
Somebody in the fence in the front straight. Is that Tellier again? I think it might have been Tellier. Just slapped the inside wall on the front straight once again. He's having a rough night in this final stage.
Yeah, that right front damage just not doing him any favors. And one thing that I know is if you make contact with the right front of that car, it's just going to tighten that race car up the longer the run goes on. So that's probably why he's having so much of an issue coming off the final corner.
Yeah, and he just has to keep working those tires. I think English is about to pit. I honestly believe we're about to see English dive to the lane, which
Tim
means
Hendry's
that he's
in
done.
The 72.
Yeah, so English is in. English is in. So I think he's done. I think he is completely and utterly screwed. I don't think he can make the end from here. Whereas these other guys, they've got an option. It's close. It is touch and go. They need to save. What they need to do now is instead of pushing hard and really trying to make the most of the time they're free out and on this racetrack, they're going to lose that anyway because of the new tires. Save, 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 save.
Well, going back to your point there about Sean English, he came to pit road running his 56th lap. With 55 laps to go, again, we got to remember, too, that there were a couple of caution pacing laps that took place there.
Worth of cautions, yeah. So 48 laps-ish of green flag running. I think, so theoretically, yes, you set yourself up for a really good track position at the end of stage number 2. English is now 1 lap down. If we get a caution, and he hasn't made up the 8 seconds he needs to get back to the lead, has Chicano gone to the lane?
He has. He's come to pit road, pitting from the 3rd position. Also in is the 29 of Justin Durand.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting, because remember, we've got chunks of the field that are on different strategies, and we know that already. So Chicano wasn't saving. I think Belmonte is saving. I think he's been saving fuel this entire run. He's been looking after his tires. He hasn't been driving it in as aggressively as everyone else in the field. Chicano was driving it very aggressively. Chicano is now 3 seconds behind Sean English. Remember, we picked up a lot of damage towards the back end there, so he's going to drop out to about 3.5 seconds. Cybery gets out of the way of Sean English. Maybe we got a race in our hands, race fans. Anything could happen here. English could pull the rabbit out of the hat and save enough fuel. I don't think it's possible. I, honest to God, do not think it's possible.
Well, the driver that also could be throwing a little bit of a monkey wrench into this is the 18 of Jacob Grant. Now, he may be back in the 8th position right now, but under our last caution, he came down pit road and topped off the fuel tank. So he could go a little bit longer than the rest of these guys up here inside of the top 7.
Yeah, and remember, he's going to be on all the tires. There's no way he would have taken fresh tires at that pit stop either. There's no reason to. 14 laps worth of green flag running. I'd rather keep the set of tires than in the bank, just in case you get a green-white checkers. You get a checkers with 10 to go or something. He's got Tellier just in behind him as well. Tellier's smart. Tellier won't be pushing him. Tellier's struggling himself. So, look, for my liking, Grant is actually in the best seat in the house for my liking, because he knows that he is good on fuel. He 100% for sure knows that he's good on fuel. And the best part for me is, in this back half of this race, after he gets his stop done, he's going to be on the freshest tires of the field. Cars in lane. We've got Coleman and Hardison. So the drivers are just starting to come down pit lane right now. We get a caution. You know who's in trouble? Sean English. Sean English is in big trouble. We get a caution right now.
Right now, English, Chicano, Tim Hendry, drivers that were on pit road, they have fallen a lap down. Nathan Hall in the 28 is coming down pit lane this time. And just going back real quickly there to Jacob Grant as well, you mentioned about the fact that he's on the same set of tires as pretty much everybody else ahead of him. His lap times are equal, if not just a little bit faster than Justin Belmonte. And this is a guy that restarted the race when he came down pit road to top off the fuel tank outside of the top 10. So he's definitely got the race win pace.
Belmonte's in, so English now back onto the lead lap. Chicano will be grabbing the leader. Braxton Dewees has gone another lap longer. So Dewees is gold. Dewees is 100% gold to the finish. Belmonte, gold to the finish for my liking. So now we're going to start seeing these things. Jacob Grant, he is actually quite good in terms of fuel, and he's going to have very fresh tires. The issue for me, and where Grant is going to lose a lot of positions, is immediately before he stops. If he's going to want to go long, he's going to lose a lot of time at that stop. Dylan Stipe just cruises past Belmonte on pit road. I think Stipe's only taking 2 tires.
Stipe is now into his pit stall, actually. I think he was just coming down pit road. Ryan Cybery was in as well. Travis Daly, and I believe another car that was on pit road and has already left was the 97 of Mike Tellier.
Interesting to note, Belmonte comes out only 2.5 seconds up the road from Jacob Grant to go a lap down. So Belmonte was really poor off in terms of where that fuel stop happens. Sean English is back up to 3rd place after the cycle through pit lane. He grabs another place. So Schilling comes down pit road. He clears himself out. So the only one left to pit now, Schilling's just been passed on pace. So Schilling was the 2nd car in terms of pace and pit road timings that did actually pit onto that last caution. So English was the first to pit. English has got to do 55 laps on this tank of fuel. I don't think he's got it. 56 laps was as far as he could go on the last tank of fuel, and that included 8 caution laps.
I'm not sure where he lost the time. If you look in terms of time on pit lane from commitment cone to commitment cone, and the time spent in the pit stall, it's somewhat similar between Sean English and Alonso Chicano. However, the gap between those two right now, with English in 2nd and Chicano in the 4th position, is about 5.5, almost 6 seconds. So I don't know if it was coming off of pit lane or how slow and conservative he might have been trying to get to the commitment line, but Alonso Chicano kind of dropped the ball there on that round of pit stops.
A little bit. He's also pitted a lap later, so English has made a little bit of time up in that extra lap that he's already put onto these tires, so it will come back in towards Chicano's favor. The other thing to remember is that just before the pit stops, Chicano dropped back to about 2.5, 3 seconds back off of him. So there's only 2 seconds that's actually been lost. So it's not a huge deal of time. It's a lot less than you really think it is. So, you know, something else to just keep in the back of your mind.
Get a Jacob Grant here. Losing positions. This is not for positions on track, but it's actually drivers that are unlapping themselves. Dylan Stipe and Mike Tellier, 10th and 11th, now getting back on the lead lap. And the thing that's not good here for Jacob Grant is the fact that with being out there on those older tires, he is losing anywhere from 1.5 to 2 seconds to the fresh tires around him.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you know, it's bad. It's obviously not great, but he's going to have that probably about a second a lap benefit for the remainder of the race, basically. And if he doesn't want to pit at the back end of the race, he doesn't have to, because he's got as much of that fuel on board as he possibly can right now. His fuel stop as well, remember, it's going to be a shorter stop because he doesn't have to put as much fuel in this car now because he did so under caution the last pit stop around. So, look, yeah, he's losing time right now. He still holds a 6-second margin over Sean English. That is still going to allow him, when he comes back out, to be still on the lead lap, and he will have the freshest tires of the field. So provided his pit stop goes nice and smoothly, I would expect him to come out, let's say, 7-8 seconds just up the road from Sean English, and I would expect him to extend that margin. Right now, he's just lost 0.6 of a second just so far through 1 and 2, and heading on to 3 and 4.
Only drivers that are yet to come down pit road to complete this cycle of green flag pit stops: race leader Jacob Grant, Derek Schilling, who has now fallen back to 5th, and the lap machine of David Durand. Those drivers have not been to pit road for the last 46 to 49 laps, as there's Caleb Smith getting his lap back as he'll go around Jacob Grant. So now 12 drivers on the lead lap. And if you're Jacob Grant, does a caution coming out right now help you or hinder you? Because drivers that have come to pit road have been out there for anywhere from 10 to 15 laps.
He's on pit road, so now it hinders him. Now it really hinders him, because he'll be in the pit lane and he'll get a black flag for pitting under closed pit entry, but he was already there. So anyway, look, he's done all he needs to do. He could go about another 5-6 laps on that tank that he had available. I think this is smart, coming down the instant that there's enough space in the tank to get the fuel in, because he wants to make sure that he minimizes that time loss. He was still 4 seconds up the road from Sean English, so he is going to come back out. He's definitely going to be on the lead lap. He's going to be getting slightly less time, but he's going to have a lot more laps to be able to do it with the fresh rubber. So, look, I honestly believe that Jacob Grant could be in... Did English just go past? English is on a flyer, so he's actually not on the lead lap here, so he might actually be in trouble.
It's got English cycled to the race lead for me, 6 seconds ahead of Alonso Chicano, and 7.3 seconds over Justin Belmonte. But as I'm looking at the lap times, it looks like that gap is slowly starting to close up. And there's still 38 laps to go, now 37 after the 60 hits the line. So Chicano, if he's able to have a good enough long run car, he's still got time to be able to get up there to Sean English.
Yeah, and he could really staple himself to the rear end here of Jacob Grant's car now with those fresh tires. So Grant is absolutely on a mission. First goal, get yourself back on the lead lap. There's 2 cars that he's going to have to race for position in between himself and Sean English. But again, I think we're looking at one of the guys that is best positioned. You got to remember here, Sean English still has 1 stop left to make. Write him out of the equation. He's gone. He's gone. He is not in contention without a yellow flag to win this race. He's going to be looking at maybe a top 10. English will have to take tires, I think, to give himself a shot. I think he'll take right sides only. That's my prediction for his final stop. Cars that are safe on fuel, Justin Belmonte. Justin Belmonte right now is 5 seconds up the road from the next car that should be good on fuel, which is Braxton Dewees. So Justin Belmonte, at 157 lap, he is going to have to save a little bit of fuel. He's going to have to save more than some of the other cars around him. Who was I looking at? It was Braxton Dewees pit on lap 158. Braxton Dewees, for my liking, has to save half a liter of fuel, and then he's home. I think he's good. I think he's good.
Folks who just joined us, the reason why we're speculating that Sean English is not going to be able to make it to the finish of this race. Last time he was on pit road was a caution just prior to the end of Stage 2. He then stayed out when Stage 2 was completed, inherited the race lead, and made his pit stop back 21 laps ago. A lot of pace laps went into the amount of distance he was able to go on that tank of fuel. If we're going to use someone as a template of just how far these drivers can go if they're running nonstop green flag laps, I think you'd have to go back to Jacob Grant. He came to pit road on his 47th lap.
Yeah, so he may even have to make another stop yet, but he's close. He's very, very close. 47 laps puts him right on the end of the race, though, because he pit at lap 166. And somebody else around him, Schilling, also pit on lap 166. So those two guys, 47 laps, puts them to, what are we, 203? 7.
Yeah, right on the
73,
edge.
213. 213. So they're actually good. They're actually good in terms of fuel. They're golden in terms of fuel. They will make it every day of the week. So they are 100% golden. Let's have a look at, say, Braxton Dewees at 158. 7, what do we got? 165, 205. Bingo. That was the crucial number that we needed to get out there. Dewees is home. He's safe. He'll have to do a tiny little bit of fuel saving just to make sure that he's got enough to burn it down when he's done, but he should be right. Belmonte needs to save about a lap and a half of fuel to make sure that he's clean to get home. Crucially, Belmonte is now ahead of Chicano. That is very, very crucial for our race. Belmonte has 7 laps fresher tires than English. He is 0.3 of a second faster per lap and closing down on English. English is in big, big trouble. He's gone.
Now, Chicano, his car just not looking all that happy, especially off turn 4. He nearly lost it a couple of laps ago. Belmonte's car looks pretty stalwart there. Hasn't really seemed to have any issues with corner exit. And that gap we told you that English had over Chicano of over 6 seconds, well, with Belmonte now out in second place, it's been cut down to less than 5.7 seconds. So Belmonte is definitely chipping into Sean English's lead. That last time by, he actually cut into it by 4/10.
Yeah, Belmonte's coming. Belmonte is absolutely coming. I tell you what, Jacob Grant right now, he's half a second faster than everybody else in this field. He is absolutely flying. He's right behind Sean English, and he is going to put himself back on the lead lap.
When he puts himself back on the lead lap, he's going to be about 25 to 26 seconds behind Sean English. I don't think, I'm pretty sure, in 30 laps time, there's no way you can make up that ground. But if he were able to
English,
if he could catch
English
a quick
does not want to
caution,
give him this. Look, maybe you've got to remember as well that take English out of this. English is going to finish this race a lap down, just under a lap down, because he's going to have to make another stop yet. So he's going to be finishing, let's say, where's all the drivers? So he's going to be finishing about 10th, 11th for my money, is where he's going to end up after everything sort of shakes itself down. And remember that Jacob Grant is just going to keep closing in. He's about 6 seconds off the next car in front of him, 0.3 of a second faster than him on that last lap. So there's a chance that he's going to catch them really, really soon. Was that coming out of the pits? That was David Duran, so don't worry about that. Tellier is another... So there's a group of cars that are a little bit spaced out. So you got Caleb Smith and Mike Tellier, who are 3 and 3.1 seconds. So 3 seconds up the road. Sorry, 6 seconds up the road to Caleb Smith. 3 seconds from him to Tellier. From Tellier, there's a big group of cars just in front of him. So Tellier's actually done a really, really good job to attach himself to the back of those cars. But now we're on a fuel race. This is my favorite kind of race. This is about, man, I've got darts. I'm throwing them at a board, and wherever they stick, let's throw that strategy out there, hey?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those races you don't want to see the caution. You want to see how this thing plays out.
I want to see this green.
And again, as we said, we had those cautions in the first 2 stages. We knew the stage cautions were going to come out, so pit road wasn't really going to play that much of a factor into that one. But when we took a look and saw the fact that there was going to be 105 laps here in this third and final stage, and how Clutch Drop is known for the long green flag runs, you just had that feeling in the back of your mind that it was going to come down to fuel strategy.
Yeah, fuel strategy, tire strategy, planning. And the planning started before the end of the last stage. It's funny that, isn't it? Because you'd think, caution, these guys are going to come down pit road, they're going to get that fuel, they'll be fine. No, it didn't happen like that. No, and the biggest thing that I was saying, this might be a cool strategy call from Sean English, he made a mistake. He made a big, big mistake, because he has dominated this race, and he's thrown it in the bin. He has literally scrunched this race up into a tiny, tiny little ball of paper, thrown it in the trash can. The best thing for my mind that Sean English can do, what are we? We're 24 laps to the end. He needs to pit now, get fresh rubber on, and go like hell. Because he's screwed no matter what happens. So go like hell now. Do it. Get it out of the way. You have to pit. Get that fresh rubber on. Let's go.
I mean, at this point in time, it's kind of difficult to be able to tell if it's the fresher tires of Belmonte or if it's Sean English just backing his pace down, maybe trying to see if he can save enough to make it to the end.
There's no way. He is so... Okay, if Sean English wants to make it to the end on fuel, he has to save 8 laps. 8 laps. It's too much. It's too much. And he is not backing his pace down. That is just rubber. That is just the difference in rubber quality. Because you saw Jacob Grant just get right up on him and just drive away. Jacob Grant, if the difference was rubber, he would have driven up on him and driven past him so much quicker. English, I can guarantee you, English is trying to drive the wheels off this thing. He's going to have to do qualifying laps from now to the end of the race to have a sniff, or he's going to have a caution. Those are the only 2 outcomes that give him a positive result here.
Well, right now, if a caution were to come out and he was saved by it to come down pit road, he would more than likely restart maybe back around the 12th position if everybody else in the lead lap decided not to come down pit lane if they were safe to make it the rest of the way. The one thing I'm wondering here, too, is you talk about those 8 laps that he would be short. Let's say a caution does come out. Would he be able to save those 8 laps under a pacing period?
He'd need multiple cautions, and we have seen that tonight. When there's been one caution, there's been another one that immediately follows it. So, yes, potentially, but he'd be so close that if there was a green-white checkers, he'd just be screwed. I'd come down. The instant that a caution come out, I'd come down, because you're going to get fresh rubber as well, which is going to give him the option of racing for a victory, and you're going to put that fuel question mark out. You're just going to basically take the eraser to it and rub it out. I wouldn't leave it to chance. There is an option to leave it to chance. I wouldn't.
This is the battle right now inside the top 10. Spencer Hardison trying to hold off Dylan Stipe, and they're having to do it while racing around quite a bit of traffic. That's the lap machine of Tim Hendry just ahead of them. Evan Coleman, who's in the top 5, 5th place, ahead of them as well in the 51. So these Mustangs looking to settle out the 6th position, and just update on the gap from 1st to 2nd. It's now less than 4 seconds, about a 10th gained by Justin Belmonte. And if I'm Belmonte right now, back to your point of saying where the 60 can't make it, I'm not even focused on Sean English right now and the interval between me and the 60. My goal is to manage the gap between myself and that 10 car.
No, not even the 10 car. The 10 car is also dead out of this race as well. My goal is to manage the gap to the 3 car. The 3 car is the first car that's good on fuel behind him.
And right now, the gap between those two would be about 6.5 seconds between Belmonte and Braxton Dewees in that 4th position. That battle for 6th place will not go away. And I'm trying not to jinx this, but if we're looking for a late race yellow to take place, it might be between these two, because they've been exchanging a little bit of metal here and there.
They have, but they've been doing it all on the spirit. Like, Stipe is a great driver. We saw it. He was in the championship for last season, and one of the 2 drivers after lap 1 that was still in that hunt. So he's a clean driver. He's a consistent driver, and he's given himself the shot to fight for a championship last season. Spencer Hardison, he's struggling. They've both got their issues. They're both doing the best thing that they possibly can for themselves. So, look, Stipe is smart. He's not going to just send it down there. Spencer Hardison, also another very, very smart driver. Yeah, look, if there's a caution that's going to come, probably from these guys, yeah, but with the quality of drivers they are, I think we're green at the end.
Well, for a couple of drivers here tonight, they'll be able to put another number besides a goose egg in the top 10 column. Alonso Chicano, as here comes Sean English to pit road. So there you go, 15 laps to go. English is on pit lane. Now, here's the question. Was that the furthest he could go?
No.
Or
No.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because if that was the furthest he could go, that throws everybody else in jeopardy.
No, it's not. It's not the furthest he can go. He's down here because he needs to take tires and he needs to give himself a racing and grabbing a few positions back. He's just had to watch Grant just sail off into the distance. Grant's 4 seconds up the road, 5 seconds. He's a tiny chance of being able to hunt him down. The car and the driver that he is going to be able to hunt down is probably Caleb Smith. So that'll be his target for right now, is to get up to that P10 spot.
Justin Belmonte, Daytona 5th, Homestead 5th, last week at Las Vegas 3rd. He's now trying to see if he can get his 4th straight top 5. and his first win of the season to lock himself into the playoffs. It's going to be 13 laps to go. The gap right now between himself and second place, 2.5 seconds. It's another 4.5 seconds back to third.
Yeah, so something to keep your eyes on as well is Chicano. When does Chicano pit? Well, I've just seen Sean English pit. There's no benefit for me to go to pit lane now. I think I'm just going to stay out. I'm going to stay out as long as I possibly can, hope for a caution, see what happens.
Right now, as I was going to say, 4 drivers are looking for their first top 10 finish on the season, including Alonso Chicano, Evan Coleman, Mike Tellier, and Dylan Stipe. If they are able to finish where they are, they will remove the goose egg they have in the top 10 column. For Chicano and Coleman, they'll also be getting their first top 5 finish of the season.
Yeah, and what a drive from some of these guys that are out here. It's been fuel strategy, it's been smarts. You've had to be able to be quick, but you've also had to be able to plan a long, long way in advance. And some of these guys have done that right, some of these guys have done it wrong. And we've learned a lot about the drivers so far this evening. Belmonte, poor boy, what a drive from him. He's driven it all the way up, so great job. But he's been right up there for most of the season. Braxton, Dewees, we talked about it at some point throughout the broadcast. He fell 12 spots since the last race out at Texas. I'm going to assume that he probably just had a terrible showing that night, and a lot of the other drivers had reasonable to good showings, and he's just had a rough evening. So he's going to pick himself up the podium. Coleman's doing a great job out there. Spencer Hardison, Dylan Stipe. You know, there's quality right throughout this field. Look at where Brian Cybery is. This is a guy that's locked himself into the playoffs, and he is struggling to keep this car in the top 10. Mike Tellier. Who would have, if you'd have sat down at the start of the night and said, oh yeah, Mike Tellier, qualified pole, yeah, he's going to run at the back end of the top 10. I would have said, what? Did he get in the wall? Did he get spun? No, he got himself in the wall. That's the reason that he's back there. You know, there's quality right throughout this field. There's battles right throughout this field. And the smarter drivers, for me, have won themselves out tonight.
When you consider the fact of just how good Dylan Stipe and Mike Tellier were last season, the slow starts they've gotten off to this season, I mean, the season's still young. We're only in race 4. To take a top 10 here out of Phoenix, especially with the struggles that Mike has had here tonight, I mean, you still got to at least feel good that you were able to finish in the top 10 for the first time this season to give you at least some momentum moving forward.
Yeah, and not just the top 10. Like he's at the back end of the top 5, and you've still got to... it's just outside the top 5, and you've got to write Chicano out. So that's the top 5 for Dylan Stipe. That's a great evening for him. He's had different phases of the race too. He's drifted back, he's brought himself up. Drifted back, brought himself up. So he's definitely there, and he's definitely still got the quality. I was actually just watched Sean English is all over the place. He just saved a miracle out of 3 and 4. He got the car all the way sideways to the right, all the way sideways to the left, and then he picked it all back up, kept it pointing in the right direction, and then he nearly lost it into turn number 1 again. So he is driving the wheels off this thing.
What he's trying to do right now is get up there into the top 10. He's got about
Caution's
2 seconds.
out!
It's Spencer Hardison.
No, what a drive for Spencer Hardison, and it's just gone away.
Oh my goodness, and that is going to change the entire aspect of this race because we're going to get ourselves a late race restart with less than 5 to go.
Oh, that is not... so the drivers... Well, Sean English, could you imagine if he'd stayed out right now? He would have been in control of this field. He's used his last set of tires. So he was screwed if he did, screwed if he didn't. Now he's going to have control of the field on the restart, but he's going to have the weakest tires. It would not surprise me in the slightest to see him grinding himself along a fence at some point in the final 5 laps of this evening. We're going to get a green-white checkers? I think we're going to get underway with what would be a green-white checkers, but it'll be under regulation time. So he's going to be close. There may not be enough time for a lot of people to barrel past on English. He may earn himself a top 5 here. Jacob Grant's in a box seat, I think, as well. He could earn himself some really good time here. So all the drivers are going to start filing down pit road. Sean English, I think, should inherit the lead here. Chicano just got a get out of jail free card. Remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about that. As he was a driver that would not have been able to make it to the conclusion of this race on fuel. And I'll take responsibility here for this late race caution, Scott, because remember I said if there was going to be a late race yellow, it was going to be contact between these two. Hardison and Stipe were battling hard for that 4th position, and that just push came to shove. And unfortunately, Hardison just lost it there off of turn 4, getting into Dylan Stipe, but they had a little bit of previous contact over into turn 3.
If you Mike Tellier here, I think you just take 2 tires. earn some track position, see what you can do. Because you know you're quick, you know you're a good driver, and you know you can race the wheels off these things and race a couple guys. So I think he's actually ended up taking 4. I think most of the field's going to end up taking 4. You're going to have Sean English here with 10-lap old tires, so we definitely saw with 2 laps of green running that there was a significant difference in terms of pace. Not significant enough to warrant that he was actually going to get overrun and overtaken during all of that, but a big enough margin that some of these guys are going to be able to get it through. He actually just attempted a practice start. This is really, really smart from Sean English. Set yourself up, get your practice start out of the way so you know what your tires are going to feel like, because this is the first time tonight he's had to do a restart with tires this old.
Absolutely. And
in this big a situation.
Well, we also saw what happened way early on in this race with older tires with Alonso Chicano, where he spun the tires from 3rd place. It stacked everybody up and brought out our second caution of the evening. So that's something that Sean English does not want to have happen here, in a restart that very well could be the deciding factor of this race. The thing I got to wonder here as well, with the fact that he's going to have 11-lap older tires than everybody else around him, is lane choice. Does he take the top side and have that better arc into turn 1, or does he decide to take the inside line, hope that he's able to not have the wheel spin, clear Belmonte, and then be able to clear himself up to the wall to still get that preferred line going into the first corner?
I think you're going to take the inside. I don't think you can take the risk. You want to take the preferred line because your only way to win this race is by blocking. That's it. You don't have any other option. You've got to block it because his tires are just so poor quality that in terms of corner grip, yeah, he's just going to get run over. So I think he's going to block it. The other thing is, I think Belmonte's going to know that. And Belmonte, I think, here in turn number 1 is just saying, right, I've got the better grip. I've got the primary position, because I'm going to have the only lane that is going to have the option to run around him on the restart. He's had a few opportunities now, Belmonte, to watch Sean English on restarts. He knows that he likes to go very, very early, so it would not surprise me to see Sean English not get the restarts that we've seen out of him so far this evening. I think the Belmonte's in the prime position. You know who else I really, really like on this restart? I actually like Braxton Dewees. Chicano's been very, very aggressive with his overtakes. He could try and send it down the inside. Braxton is going to have all of this knowledge and all of this ability to read a lot of the drivers around him. Something else to keep in the back of your mind, Mike Tellier is up to P6. He's on that outside line. He is set for another good restart here as well.
Going to be a green-white checkered finish, but inside the scheduled distance. Question is our final restart of the night. Green flag in the air. Belmonte was not ready. Chicano was. It's going to be English and Chicano 1-2 heading into turn 1. Contact for 3rd.
Yeah, Braxton Dewees just got in the rear corner of Belmonte. Belmonte's a long way around. It's going to be a green-white checkers. Who is that in the background? That's Cybery. It's got to be Cybery. That's the only car that looks like that in the background. And this does not play well for Sean English, and all of a sudden Chicano gets the favored lane, and Chicano's been making the most out of these restarts as well.
Now let's not forget, Chicano's been one of the more aggressive drivers on the restarts, picking up multiple spots in the first couple corners as soon as we go back green. As long as he can keep his tires from spinning, he will be alongside of Sean English here as we head into overtime. Let's go back and see what happened out of turn 2 to our winner a couple of weeks ago at Homestead, Brian Cybery, who for the most part has been keeping that 33 out of trouble all night.
Well, he had a few issues earlier on. Remember we were talking about, he had the car completely and utterly sideways and he was trying to savor it. I think he's just gotten 18 car got underneath him. Yeah, it just touches him. Just not quite enough space. That's a fair move. There's nothing in that. So unfortunately, you're going to race hard on restarts, especially with a couple laps left in the race, and that's totally fair on both drivers.
And for Cybery, he couldn't give a whole lot of room because he had Caleb Smith to his outside. It's a very congested corner when you take it 3 wide, so Cybery kind of between a rock and a hard place there. Is an aggressive move by Jacob Grant is what leads to that contact and spins the 33 around. The tough break there for Brian Cybery is this track's somewhat spacious if you can avoid hitting the inside or outside wall. Cybery was not so fortunate, and the impact was with the front end of his machine.
Yeah, so he loses that. He's going to lose all chance at picking up a phenomenal points finish tonight. He should be able to finish himself inside the top 15. Still points, still keeps himself in the race. He's locked into playoffs though, so look, a lot of the things that I'm actually, talking about is that drivers that have locked themselves in, they can take a few more risks, right? They're just looking for those extra bonus points for the playoffs. So he's done that. I don't think he's had the setup so far this evening to be able to really challenge for much of a higher placed finish. And look, that happens sometimes. It's part and parcel of racing. You do what you can, and he's come out the back end of it on the wrong foot, and that just happens sometimes.
Looks like the driver that gets lucky dog under this caution, I believe, is going to be the 15 of Travis Daly. Nathan Hall was the recipient of the lucky dog under the last caution, so 14 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green. We did have a couple of drivers at the tail end of the field come down pit lane outside of the top 10, but it will be Sean English, Alonso Chicano, that'll be the front row, Justin Belmonte, Braxton Dewees, Mike Tellier, the top 5, followed by Evan Coleman, Caleb Smith, Jacob Grant, Spencer Hardison, who got a tiny piece of that incident off of turn 2. He'll be 9th with Dylan Stipe completing the top 10. And the key here tonight for Sean English has been these restarts. He's been able to pull ahead by a pretty good margin every single time. Thing is, though, at some point in time, Elijah Chicano picked up on where his starting point was, because he was right there with the 60 when they got to turns 1 and 2. Now with him being on the outside of the front row, you got to wonder if it's going to be a dead even heat between these two on this green-white checker.
Yeah, Chicano. All of a sudden, Chicano just jumps up and takes my favorite spot for the win here. Look at the restart. Look at that last restart. They're going to try for another side-by-side restart here. I think they should have a go at both restarts under the green-white checkered system as side-by-side. I don't think for green-white checkers there's any reason to move it back to a single file, but hey, look, it's your series. You run it the way you want, and they run it that way for a very good reason, and the reason is they want to promote good racing. So look, it has its place. The single file restart has its place. So, you know, it's not my cup of tea, but it has its race. Who would I want to be right now? Actually, you know what? Belmonte hasn't been timing the restarts from the outside lane from when he has to watch him. I think him sitting directly in behind Sean, he's going to see the attitude in that car change. And as soon as he sees that attitude in the car change, it's a single file restart? Might be a single file restart.
Looks like it is. Single file restart here for green-white checker overtime finish, and English accelerates. He's going to have himself a gap. It's Braxton Dewees making the move for 3rd place.
Yeah, this plays right into English's hands. Remember, he runs away very, very early on here. He is going to need absolutely every single bit of this to go perfectly. Chicano is blocking. Dewees is right there. Dewees is going to send it on Chicano, so Chicano doesn't get it all his own way either.
Chicano trying to see if he can hold off Dewees for 2nd place. That might just have handed the win to Sean English, but maybe not just yet. Only 2.5 car lengths between himself and Chicano, who clears for 2nd place.
Oh!
They're racing back to the checkers as the white flag is out.
Yeah, English got real loose. Chicano's got down there down the inside. Dewees is going to try and follow him through. He may hang on to a podium here as Sean English. He hasn't got enough pace. Dewees got into the rear corner of him. He was very loose. Sean English is wide. Sean English is not settling this car nicely. He's 3 wide out of the last corner. Contact. English might end up at the fence. He doesn't do it. There's cars everywhere. And all of a sudden, one looks set to be a clean finish. One looks set to be a race to the line. It's going to have to take some undressing and some unfolding, and I have a feeling we're going to have admin intervention.
We've got cars flipping across the start-finish line as 7, 8, 9 cars were collected up, but the first car to make it back to the start-finish line was Alonso Chicano. He's going to be your winner here tonight in the Desert of Phoenix.
Yeah, locks himself into the playoffs. He made that restart. I said it. You got to put the favorites down there on Alonso Chicano. What's the best way to handle all of that? Well, Mike Tellier says you slap 2 tires on it, you jump yourself 4 spots in the pit lane, you grab yourself a 3rd position. He has had an absolutely horrendous night, and he walks away from it with a podium. Great job from Mike Tellier. That is race smarts 101 right there.
Absolutely. Braxton Dewees, you have to wonder if he hadn't had that block thrown on him, courtesy of Sean English going into turn 3, would he have been able to drive it deep enough to get to the back bumper of Alonso Chicano? But we'll never know. Chicano going to get to burn it down here tonight at Phoenix. It's only his 2nd start of the season. His last start was back at Homestead 2 weeks ago, where he finished outside the top 10 and 13th. So, you know, he's ticked the box now with a race win. Now he's got to make sure he makes enough starts so he's high enough in the point standings for this win to definitely secure himself a spot into the postseason.
Somebody you've really got a feel for right there is Justin Belmonte. He just could not pick Sean English's restarts, and I wonder whether or not Sean English might have been going just that little bit too early. He was going so early. You noticed that all night? None of the drivers seemed ready for it. And that makes me wonder if it wasn't just that little bit too early. So I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit of rules clarification around that, which is always a good thing. I think English has done what he possibly potentially can. He's right on the limit of being slightly too early. That's a very good thing for rules, because it's also a good thing for the other drivers, because they sit down, they go, all right, English had these restarts nailed. What was he doing? When was he going? What's the optimum time to do that? So a lot of the other drivers will have a lot to study out of that. In terms of things, Justin Belmonte coming out of that last corner, English gets underneath the apron, which for me, no, I'm not happy with that. I am not happy with that at all. I think English has been way too aggressive with his blocking. I think the blocking on the back straight, that's fine, but it's the blocking beneath the apron, and then he tries to block Belmonte. And I think he's just ruined Belmonte's race. If anything, I'm in Belmonte's shoes. I'm saying, no, I want that penalized. That was not cool. He blocks on the apron. He blocks on the high line. I don't think that's fine. English, he made his bed. He made his bed just before the end of the second stage. Now he has to lie in it. That's what happens. Look, he had an option to go for a win tonight. He should thank his lucky stars that he had that. But he also needs to earn his respect. Tonight was his first night in the league, and I think he has done the exact opposite. He has not made himself a lot of friends.
Justin Belmonte, this ends his streak of top 5 finishes to start out the year. And on the flip side of that, Sean English unofficially crossing the line in the 4th spot, and just a whole bunch of drivers trying to avoid the spinning 12 crossing the start-finish line. It really shuffled up who finished where from about the 5th position on back, as we'll now take a look at the full finishing results from tonight's event. And we know the top 3. Unofficially at this point, it is going to be Sean English in 4th place. Evan Coleman will bring it home with the top 5 in 5th. Jacob Grant and Caleb Smith in 6th and 7th. I believe from Smith on back were drivers that were collected up in the carnage there on the front straight when it comes across the start finish line. Spencer Hardison, Belmonte, and Brian Cybery, your top 10. Versus the drivers to finish on the lead lap were Dylan Stipe, Justin Duran, Nathan Hall, and actually Nathan Hall was the last of those drivers. Pretty good runs there for the 29 and the 28 of Duran and Nathan Hall, who spent about 50% of this race off the lead lap. Those late race yellows helping out their cause.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when it goes well, it goes well. When it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. Look, Hendry was unlucky for me. Hendry, I think, did okay this evening. Hendry, I really want to see more of him. I want to see him in a different track. Phoenix is one of those awkward ones where it's not a track that gives a lot of information on how the rest of the season's going to go. I think one of the drivers best positioned tonight without that late race caution was Jacob Grant. He was coming. He grabs himself a 6th place spot. Good top 10 for him. Unlucky to not grab a top 5. I think English gets demoted. He snags himself a top 5. So a really good job from him. Alternate strategy. Did a great job pitting early in that final stage under one of the cautions. I think great performance from him. I think he's done himself absolutely proud. I'm looking at the 25. Caleb Smith. I don't think he did make it through that wreck. Yeah, he catches the spinning Belmonte. Nothing he could have really done there. So Hardison comes through. Hardison had an absolutely wrecked motor vehicle after that final caution. He's going to pick himself up an 8th place finish. Good job to him. Really good job. So, what more can you ask for?
Speaking of picking up, I mean, there's going to be a lot of movers and shakers in the point stands. There was last week after Las Vegas. I mean, the points are still close since we're in the early stages of this season. And only 4 races in, there's going to be a lot of drivers gaining spots, a lot of drivers losing spots. And on the losing side, I mean, you got guys that finished back in the garage area, like 2nd in points, Jeremy Bushi, 5th in points, Matt Dyer, 6th in the standings, Brandon King, 7th in points, Tristan Mayer. I mean, there's going to be a lot of drivers dropping out of the top 10, a lot of drivers moving into the top 10. So our playoff grid coming into tonight is going to have a facelift.
Yeah, and it's good to see. I mean, it's a rack fest at the end of the night, and that's what a lot of people are going to walk away from the night with. But it was a good race all round. I think from a racetrack that is not easy by any stretch of the imagination, for us to end up with a finish that was as close as it was with that lace race caution with the green-white checkers. It could have been a lot worse, a lot earlier than that, but the drivers kept it clean. They all knew what they needed to try and do, and there's a lot of questions that got asked coming away from a racetrack. That's what I want to see. Incites a lot of entertainment in the weeks to come.
Well, we're going to get a little bit of an insight of a few of our drivers and how they felt about tonight's race, the track conditions, how their cars handled and whatnot. We're going to talk to our third place driver who scores his first top 10 of the season. That's Mike Tellier. Hey, Mike, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do got you, boys.
Wow, I mean, you had an adventurous night to be sure. Good battling up there at the front in the first two stages. Then we saw you get the wall, and it looked like a race of survival for the 97 car. It looked like not only the track conditions, but the cars themselves a handful for you guys tonight.
Yeah, it was. I was expecting the track to be a little cooler, so the setup was definitely looser than I'd like, but it felt good. I got loose off of 4 and hit the wall there, like you guys mentioned, and it kind of affected the handling, but it was still in general like a fast car, as you guys could see. I just needed some luck at the end, and sure enough, their late caution helped me out a bunch.
Just going into that last pit stop, what was the thoughts? Were you grabbing 2 tires always? Did you end up taking 2? Did you end up taking 4? How did you handle all that?
I took 4 tires. I had a set left, and I knew that it would be the only way to go, especially with how much damage I had. I figured 4 tires would help me get around the track a little bit better than 2. And, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got lucky finishing P3, but, I mean, I was running up front all race long at the beginning. Kind of got bullied to the outside there at the start of the 3rd stage or the final stage, and I don't know, it seemed like a downhill battle from there. But like I said, that late race caution definitely helped me out.
You know, we were talking about how in the first 3 races this season, Mike, you failed to score a top 10. How important is it for you here tonight to get that 3rd place finish, get that first top 10, not only that, but the first top 5, and set your sights on the remainder of this season in terms of momentum? Because you were off to a great start last season. It's kind of been a complete opposite here in season 2.
Well, if at the end of the day it leads to a championship, I'll take a crappy start to the season any day. But no, I was really excited for Vegas last week, and stuff happened, and I got involved in the wreck on lap 1, and it definitely wasn't what I was expecting. But no, we had a fast car last week, had a good car this week. I was kind of hoping to battle for the win, but as the race went on, Alonso's car just like came to life, and all race long I'm like, Alonso, you got this, man. You got the fastest car in the long run, and just tried to settle him down, and I don't know, he got the win, which is nice. Hopefully I can get there later on this season, lock myself into the playoffs.
Well, Mike, congratulations on a great performance here tonight. 3rd place in the Desert of Phoenix International Raceway. We're now going to give the opportunity here for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, you guys for being on the hood of my car all season long. Luminary for letting me join the team this season, and Dylan over the guys at Clutch Drop for putting on the show every Sunday. It's fun to be around.
That's Mike Tellier. It's his first podium finish of the season. Carries good momentum into Atlanta next week. Congratulations, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And now let's see if we can get a word with the driver number 3, 2nd place finisher here tonight, Braxton Dewees. Hey, Braxton, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I do.
Man, we were kind of going down the order of drivers that were really good on the restarts, and you were definitely on that list. Late race caution comes up. You're lined up there inside of the top 3 for that final green-white checkered. You had a shot there on the back straightaway. What little more do you think you could have done to be on the back bumper of that 10 through 3 and 4?
I don't really know. He was pretty quick. We were all pretty quick there. He just had a better run and won and got around him. I wish I would have been a little bit closer. But I felt like I got a pretty good restart at the end when it was single file. I got a little held up on that restart before the final one when I restarted 4th. 2nd place didn't really go as much, but that's all right. I mean, we still got a 2nd place finish, and that's great considering that we missed last week.
Yeah, look, I mean, what a drive. Coming to that second to last restart, you got right to the bumper there of Justin Belmonte, and there was a little bit of contact. I actually heard you guys talking about it in race. There's obviously no love lost between you guys, but it's still fair. It's clean racing. I think he moved down, and I think you said that to him as well. It's just good, clean racing. Talk to us, talk to me, talk to the fans about that, because it's so hard to achieve, and it's something that Clutch Drop Racing does so well.
Yeah, up there at the front, we were racing really clean that whole race. Even if we had a little bit of contact, a little bit of contact and us racing good and saving it, it's all good. But I guarantee you, if one of us spun out after one of that little contact, there would have been some arguing, I bet. But we all know what we're doing up here and keeping it clean as much as we can. For the most part, the taps weren't really from anybody. Taps aren't really
It's just
meant,
that, isn't it?
but yeah.
It's light taps where you underestimate the length and the depth of the car.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the breaking points, especially going into one. It's really difficult when you know where someone's going to break. It's almost different for everybody going into one, so it's a little bit of difficult, guessing the break point every time because it couldn't be the same every time. So it's just a little hard to get used to. But once you start racing around that person, after a while, you start learning where their breaking point is, and I just misjudged it there.
Braxton, we knew that you guys had the stage cautions to look forward to, so we didn't really expect to see any round of green flag pit stops in the first two stages. But when we got to that third and final stage, we pretty much expected that you guys were going to have to make at least one, maybe two pit stops under green flag conditions. And we know that here at Phoenix, especially with the scoring lines over there in 1 and 2, how the track kind of congests up in terms of how far apart the different scoring loops are, how it can nail you for speeding. How much of a struggle was it here tonight making that green flag pit stop?
You just got to hit your marks and just use previous races to your advantage. You wanted to take it a little bit easy since we haven't had a green flag pit stop. So I got down on the apron a little bit, just checked up a little bit, wanted to check my speed. I knew pit speed was 45, so I knew I could get in there clean. But as long as you can nail that entry and be in there by 45 mile an hour and just hold your foot there and keep going and get 3 boxes in or 3 boxes out, because if you don't do it, if you do like 4, say go 4 in, you'll get a penalty. So you want to make sure you keep on top of your pit stop game, because it can really mess up your strategy for sure.
Braxton, you made 2 starts so far this season. Both of those starts finish inside of the top 5, so certainly looks like it might not be too long till we'll see this 3-car in victory lane, maybe as soon as next week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Congrats on a great finish here tonight. We're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Atlanta next week, especially with the update they made. There's supposed to be a sticky strip on the top side, so we're going to be supposedly seeing some good racing there. We'll see. But I want to thank all the family, friends, supporters that support me into the sim racing career and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I want to thank all the sponsors: Zimmerman Concrete, Ron's Pizza, Bennett's Publical, Ravenwood Enterprise, Scott Martin and Jeff Schmidt, NASCAR Technical Institute, King Grant Paints for this beautiful paint. I want to thank y'all for broadcasting. I want to thank High Five Racing. I want to thank True Velocity Tech Lab and Tied and Loose Off. They're all pretty cool, and glad that they support me. And high five.
Talked about how there's going to be gainers and losers in the point stands heading into Atlanta. Braxton is going to be one of those gainers as he'll finish second place here tonight at Phoenix. Congrats on a great run there, Braxton. We look forward to seeing you carry this momentum into Atlanta next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And now let's see if we can go down to victory lane to talk with tonight's race winner, Alonso Chicano. Hey, Alonso, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys. How you guys doing?
Man, we're doing good. I'll bet you're doing great, but I got to ask you there, that late race caution comes out. You're lined up there on the outside of the front row in that green-white checkered. I mean, what was going through your mind in terms of strategy to get around that 60 car and where the move was going to be made, or did it all just kind of come to you in the moment?
Hang on, Seth. Hang on. There's a better question to ask here. How close on fuel were you just before that caution came out?
I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but I was slowing down a lot because I was saving hard because it was close. It was gonna come down to the straightaway probably. It was super close. So honestly, that caution came out and I said out loud, "Thank God!" I was so happy to see that caution.
When you saw Sean English dive to the pit lane, 5-6 laps earlier than that you breathe a sigh of relief then, knowing that you didn't have to race him?
Yeah, I mean, I was confused. I didn't think I had the time or the car to catch Justin anyways. And then I mean, my train of thought was like, first of all, like, okay, that's weird. I'm not sure like why he would do that. And then I checked my fuel, and then I was like, oh crap, like I'm not gonna make it either. So that's when I realized I had to start saving. Because I had pitted like the lap after him, on the green flag pit stops.
We noticed that your car was up there at the front quite a bit in that third and final stage, but we also saw that not all the time was that car handling the way you wanted to. Got up into the wall a couple of times. We talked about the new damage model here with iRacing and how a lot of drivers have told us that it actually affects how the car handles a lot more so than it did in the past. Did you find that was the case after you got up into the wall a couple times?
Um, yeah, I feel like if if I had if I would have kept my car cleaner throughout the race and stayed out of trouble, I feel like I would have been a lot bigger of a challenge for the lead. So it did affect handling a little bit. Not to the point where I was like, I have to take all my damage fixed. I left probably like 25 seconds worth of damage on the clock in the pits. So I definitely could have stayed there longer if I wanted to, but the track position was way more important, and um, I still had the engine speed, so I knew it was definitely affecting me, and it was making my car actually a lot looser on exit. But it wasn't gonna be worth taking the time to fix it.
Now, Alonso, I got to ask you here as well. This is only your second start of the season, but you go to victory lane. So now what's the goal for this 10 car heading down the rest of this regular season? Because, obviously this victory locks you into the playoffs, but you also have to be up in a certain area in the point standings for that win to count towards the playoffs. So does this give you a little bit of an opportunity heading into other races to kind of fool around with some strategy to try and get those bonus points, pick up a couple more victories before the end of the regular season?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely a cool league. I really do this uh, just whenever I can on Sundays. So it's not like I can't really promise to make every single Sunday, but definitely glad I was able to be here today, and I'm gonna make a little bit more of an effort now to show up to some more races than I was planning to. I like I said, I came here because um, I like Phoenix. I like flat tracks. They've always been good to me in my driving style. So I was really I'm really hoping to make the most amount of races that I can throughout the rest of the season, and hopefully I can make an appearance in the playoffs and compete for the championship when the time comes.
Well, congratulations on your victory here tonight, Alonso. We're now going to give the opportunity to do some thank you sponsors and shout outs down there in Victory Lane.
Yeah, I mean, biggest thank you has to go to my spotter Andre. He was keeping me calm throughout the whole race, keeping me updated on what was going. So huge thanks for him and coming on board tonight and helping me out. Of course, all my sponsors rolling with the punches. Of course, in the pits news, Grid Network. I'd like to thank my team, Radius Racing, Cameron Caldwell. I like to thank my Radius teammate. He's not my teammate in this league, but my Radius teammate, Mike Tellier. I'd like to thank him. He was being supportive on the Discord as well. So yeah, I obviously like to thank you guys for doing this show. It's greatly appreciated. Um, and yeah, that's all I got.
Well, Alonso Chicano gets his first top 10, top 5, and victory of the season all in one night as he takes the checkered flag here tonight at Phoenix International Raceway. Congratulations, Alonso. Go and enjoy your win.
Thank you.
And I don't know what it is, but I mentioned the fact that Clutch Drop, they follow the Cup Series, the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. They're pulling a NASCAR Cup Series here. 4 races, 4 different drivers have gone to victory lane here so far, Scott.
Oh man, and look, how far into the season are we already? Woo boy! No, I think last season the finale was a little bit boring. I think it mostly resolved itself on lap number 1. I definitely do not think that's the case this time around. Have a look at the closeness of racing. It's right up and down the field too, which is the best part. we've got drivers. You mentioned it. The wreck that caused our late race caution was between Stipe and Spencer Hardison. Those guys were battling at each other. Unfortunately, it's just a racing incident that happens. I think Hardison just got loose. It just happens. What a season so far. You know, the best part, we're not even halfway done yet.
No.
I am so keen to have a look at the back end of this season and see the drivers develop as well. Mike Tellier had an absolutely god-awful night. Walks away with third place. Man, that is so good for him. Chicano, all of a sudden, shows up to a couple of races. Tellier's clearly been working with him and, you know, cooling him down. And it's amazing the effect that those other drivers that are working with you can really, really have on your mentality. That's something that's different in iRacing that you can't get in the real world. Your teammates are working with you. Yeah, sure, your crew chief's going to be on the radio too. He's going to be telling, hey, man, just settle it down a little bit. But it's another driver that's actually out on the track, and they're seeing what you're seeing. They're not seeing it from a different perspective like a crew normally would. It's just all the benefits, all the takeaways. iRacing is not a direct racing simulation, and that is what makes it exciting to me.
Yeah, and also when you consider the fact, too, that, as you said, we're early on here in the season. We've had 4 different drivers go to victory lane, and to my knowledge, none of these drivers were in the playoffs last season. So a lot of the favorites that, you know, were contenders for that championship last year, they still haven't found victory lane. And so if we continue down this trend, I believe there's only 12 drivers that make it into the playoff grid here for the Cup Series. And so it's going to be rather congested. We could end up having drivers that go to victory lane here this year not even make it into the playoffs if we end up having more than 12 drivers go to victory lane.
Yeah, and isn't that exciting prospect? I don't think that's ever happened before, has it?
Not to my knowledge, it hasn't.
So, look, it's an exciting season. The quality of the field is there. And you even see it. The SRM guys were just nowhere near the front of the field. They had to try and run an alternative strategy to get themselves back to the front. That is great. That is amazing for the quality of the league. So, look, next week out, who knows who we'll be talking about down in victory lane.
Oh, yeah, but here's the thing. If you look at the last 2 victories that the NSM were able to get, it was at the 1.5 mile tracks, Homestead and Las Vegas. We're going to another 1.5 mile next week at Atlanta, and I loved that little tidbit that we got with the fact that they're going to be putting the PJ1 up on that outside line. So multi-groove racing at the slick track of Atlanta Motor Speedway, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I tell you what, Atlanta, and it's another one of those tracks that just throws. People say cookie cutter. They ain't cookie cutter. There are still some unique features about all of these racetracks that make them so interesting to you, to me, to everyone out there. We got a season on the approach, man. Can SRM make that comeback at the 1.5 miles? Can they really put the stamp down and say, hey, we dominate these racetracks, come and try me? Well, we're going to find out next week.
Definitely are. These drivers going to head to the D-shaped 1.5 miles of Atlanta Motor Speedway to continue on the second season of the Clutch Drop Cup Series, and we'll have the call for you next Sunday evening. Green flag scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Been a great one here tonight at Phoenix. It came down to pit strategy, a late race caution, and an overtime green-white checkered, but Alonso Chicano, is the one that gets to celebrate in victory lane at the close of it. Scott's been a good one here tonight at Phoenix. Appreciate you joining me.
Man, I enjoyed myself. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. We'll see you guys next Sunday evening as we've got a full week of racing going on here on Flatout Racing Network. We'll see you guys this coming Tuesday as G-Force Racing League is going to be on tap. They are not continuing their schedule. It's going to be something special here this Tuesday night, we've been told, as they're taking an off week from their schedule, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But for Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.